Please be seated, members. Good evening, members. It is wonderful to see members of the public here this evening. Welcome to Swale Borough Council's full council meeting. To explain what to expect. This is a meeting held in public, but it is not a public meeting. So only those invited to speak will be able to do so. This is your opportunity to observe the items being debated by members of this council. As a reminder to everyone in this chamber this evening, both members and members of the public, I expect the meeting to be conducted respectfully. Shouting out or interrupting will not be tolerated. Anyone displaying this behaviour will be asked to leave. Please be advised that the meeting will be live streamed and the data collected during the recording of this meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy. The recording of the meeting may be added to the Council's website. The following staff are in attendance: the Chief Executive, Director of Resources, the Monitoring Officer and Democratic Services. Item 1. There is no scheduled test of the fire alarm, so if the alarm does sound, please leave the building quickly using the doors signed as fire escapes and assemble in the car park at the front of the building and await instructions. If there is anyone in attendance who may require assistance in evacuating the building, please make themselves known. Thank you, Councillor. Agenda item 2, apologies for absence. I invite the Chief Executive to give apologies.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. We have received apologies from Councillors Kavanagh, Clark, Lehman, Sarah Stephen, Martin, Paul Stephen, Bonney, Golding, Nundy, Moore, Noy, Last and Tucker.
Are there any others, please? Councillor Baldock.
Yeah, Councillor Carnell, I did say report it earlier, but he's in London.
Thank you. Are there any others? Thank you, councillors. Agenda item 3 are the minutes. Do members approve the minutes of the council meetings held on the 19th of November 2025 and the 10th of December 2025, minute numbers 466 to 477 and minute numbers 556 to 568 as a correct record? Agreed. Thank you, members. I'll sign them as a true record. Item 4, declarations of interest. Do any members have any declarations of interest to declare? No. Thank you, members. Swiftly move on to item 5, Mayor's announcements. The Deputy Mayor and I have now completed over 110 engagements across the borough. These have included a number of Christmas events, including Lights of Love at Minster Abbey and the UK Paper Mills Christmas concert. The new year started with a Faversham Carnival dinner, a restaurant opening in Laysdown, and a visit by Milton Regis Cubs to the council chamber. And next week I'll be at a function with the High Sheriff of Kent discussing rehabilitation of people serving custodial sentences. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Borden Grammar School, Violence Against Women and Girls champions, who have been selected as finalists in the National Crime Beat Awards, which will be held in March in London. Last Wednesday, the Masters House workshops were officially opened, and I know this is something that Councillor Bonney was very passionate about. These workshops are going to make a huge difference to the lives of the young people who will use them. A perfect example of what can be achieved by investing in the talent and future of the young people in Sheerness. And finally, nominations for the Mayor's Civic Awards will be opening soon. These awards will be asking for people to nominate their hidden heroes who work to help others across the borough. Thank you, councillors. Agenda item 6, questions submitted by the public. One question has been received by a member of the public. Colette Hasseldine, is that how I... Hazeldine, I do apologise. Please come forward and put your question to the leader.
Good evening. Following the recently concluded second public consultation on the proposed introduction of parking charges to raise £335,000 to balance the 2026-27 budget and leaving £17.3 million in reserves, under the Borough of Swale off-street parking places variation number 10 Order 2026 proposal and its companion variation number 9 proposal, which again attracted overwhelming public opposition, including over 3,500 petition signatures and detailed objections, raising concerns about local economic, social and community impacts. And given that both the courts and the external auditors have consistently upheld that, under sections 55 and 122 of the Road Traffic Regulation Act 1984, both off-street and on-street parking charges income are restricted to traffic and parking management purposes and must not be set or used for general council services. And given that even though Section 95 of the Traffic Management Act 2004 expanded the permitted uses of any surplus once generated, it does not remove the requirement that parking charges themselves must not be set as a fiscal measure for general budget purposes. Can the leader explain what steps the council is taking to ensure that these proposals comply with the Road Traffic Regulation Act 1984 and relevant case law, and on what legal basis officers consider that parking charges income may lawfully be raised for general budget purposes where that position appears to conflict with established judicial and audit findings and Department for Transport guidance? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Colette, for that question. The Council has undertaken relevant consultation to off-street parking charges proposed late last year, and it's compliant with the legislation and guidance from the British Parking Association that the majority of councils across the country rely on. This was reported on and discussed by members at the Environmental Services and Climate Change Committee last night. At the meeting, members discussed the matter of opposition against the charges and the principles of fairness across the borough. The report recognised that the modest projected income from the additional 6 car parks was proposed in order to help those car parks become self-sufficient, meaning that other council budget can be spent on a range of services. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary question?
Just very quickly to say...
You have to press the microphone.
Thank you very much for your careful reply. Just really quickly to find out the proposed transfer of assets, whether considering transferring the assets to Queenborough Town Council would save the Borough Council the money, and instead of raising charges elsewhere to make fairness, perhaps you could reduce them elsewhere to make fairness. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, a good question. But asset transfer is part of the Properties Committee, so Economy and Property will deal with that issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Members, agenda item 7, questions submitted by members. 6 questions have been submitted, and I will ask each councillor to put their question. I will then ask if there is a supplementary question. Question 1, Councillor Richard Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the 1st of October, this council made a clear political decision to take back control of HMO development by progressing a borough-wide immediate Article 4 direction and by urgently producing a supplementary planning document so residents could finally be consulted and poor quality HMOs properly controlled. Nearly 4 months later, nothing has changed on the ground. HMOs are still being created without planning applications, without public consultation and without the council having any real say. Precisely the democratic failure, this motion was passed to end. So, can the chairman of planning tell full council, without generalities or process language, what has been done since the 1st of October? Give a clear timetable with dates for both the Article 4 direction and the special planning document, and explain why residents are still being left unprotected while this council's own decisions remain unimplemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Councillor Booth, please. No. Is it you? Oh, sorry, Councillor Booth. No, you're all right. Take a seat.
I'm okay, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Councillor Charles Gibson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Booth. And thank you, Councillor Palmer, for your question. Apologies, you've received the chair of the lesser planning committee at Swale, but this is where this process has gone. In response to your questions, members will be aware that no planning decision is sound without robust evidence, whether that be a planning application being decided or whether that be planning policy being created. With this precursor, I'm pleased to explain that a paper came to our Planning and Transportation Policy Working Group just last week, setting out the significant amount of research and evidence building that has taken place since that motion and laying out a programme for adoption of the SPD 5 months from now. As the SPD will need its pre-consultation draft approved by the Policy and Resources Committee, a period of consultation and a period of reflection on that consultation, and then approval by the Planning and Transportation Policy Working Group, Policy and Resources, and this full council, I trust you can see that pace is being applied to this work stream and that those levers are being pushed as hard as they can. The Article 4 direction is progressing in parallel, and the approvals route for this document is via Planning Committee. I will take the liberty of commenting on behalf of Councillor Booth, the chair of that committee, that this is presently anticipated at the Planning Committee in March. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Councillor Richard Palmer, do you have a supplementary question?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Question 2, Councillor Mistruk, would you like to give your
Thank you,
question,
Madam
please?
Mayor. Can the leader confirm whether Swale Borough Council has been approached by the government or the Home Office about refurbishing existing homes or building new housing in Swale for the use of asylum seeker accommodation as part of the national pilot scheme now pursued by the councils?
Thank you, Councillor Mistruk. Councillor Tim Gibson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Bishop, for that question. Swale Borough Council has not received any approach from the Home Office or any other government department regarding the pilot programme announced in the summer statement that it intends to bring an end to the use of hotels as asylum accommodation. Should the government initiate discussions with us in future, we will engage constructively and ensure that members are informed and a report brought back to the relevant committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mistruk, do you have a supplementary question?
No.
Thank you very much. Question 3 is from Councillor Peter MacDonald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Given the ongoing unsustainable erosion of the Sheppey Cliffs caused by climate change, shifting tectonic plates and the rising sea levels, will Swale Council urge the government to replace its current no-intervention coastal policy for the Sheppey frontage with a policy of active protection in order to safeguard the area's social, economic and community interests for the current and future generations? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. It's you again, Mr. Leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm enjoying the exercise. And thank you, Councillor MacDonald, for the question. Following a motion presented by your good self in November 2020, the Council lobbied MPs and government ministers and attended officer-level meetings with key national agencies in order to pursue this change in coastal policy. The Environmental Services and Climate Change Committee received an update report on the 18th of March 2025, where the full details of action was recorded. At that committee, evidence was shown to suggest the motion was not able to be delivered, and members resolved to cease any further work on changing the shoreline management plan and instead focus on resource on engaging with the affected communities. A further report is scheduled to go to the Environmental Services and Climate Change Committee in March to present a draft engagement plan for members to adopt, which then determines what level of continued support we will offer to those residents affected. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Councillor MacDonald, do you have a supplementary question?
Only a comment that I hope that we have the opportunity to actually present some evidence, and I'm asking the question suggesting that in my grandfather's time, local people for the Sheppey Rural District Council actually put the sea defences in at the Lees at Minster, which worked. And the excuses from some of these departments, I think, is unacceptable. And I think we've got to be tough, quite frankly. Can we please be tough with these organisations? Thank you.
Councillor Gibson?
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. You have my assurance that we'll be as strong as we possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 4 is from Councillor Charles Gibson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This issue has now been resolved thanks to intervention of our officers, so I'll allow the leader a break.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. I'm sure Councillor Gibson will appreciate the break.
Very kind, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Gibson.
Okay, Councillor, sorry. So the next question would have been from Councillor Mark Loss. He will receive a written response from the Chair of Housing and Health, Councillor Perkin. So last question is question 6. Councillor Charlie Miller, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Will the Chair for the Economy and Property Committee outline how the Council is engaging with the owners of empty buildings that are in growing states of disrepair in Sittingbourne Town Centre, namely the old cinema building, Bell House, the Bell Centre and the former Wheatsheaf pub? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. I've asked Councillor Wise to respond on behalf of Councillor Bonney, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Miller. I'm very happy to answer this question in place of Councillor Bonney, who can't be here this evening. This council shares residents' frustration about the deteriorating condition and prolonged vacancy of several key buildings in Sittingbourne Town Centre, including the old cinema, Bell House, the Bell Centre and the former Wheatsheaf pub, as you rightly pointed out. Officers from the Regeneration, Property and Planning Services teams are engaging with owners and their agents to develop future plans for these sites. Officers are also promoting appropriate maintenance and security and issuing notices for urgent works where necessary. Furthermore, they're exploring opportunities to bring the buildings back into productive use where the council's limited resources will permit. Regarding the former cinema, introductions have been made to interested parties, but these have yet to progress further so far. The Swale Community Safety Unit holds regular multi-agency discussions about hotspot locations such as these, including insecure and dilapidated buildings like Bell House and the old Barclays building. Through joint working between the police and environmental response teams, and more recently monthly meetings with KFRS, these locations are being addressed by engaging with and enforcing against the landlords and owners. Proactively, officers contact owners when properties pose a risk or access is gained and antisocial behaviour occurs. They also issue communications to property owners before school holiday periods, encouraging additional patrols. Officers are also preparing a report for the Economy and Property Committee. This report will detail various potential options for the Council to support town centre regeneration and tackle long-term vacancy, aligning with its town centre policy. It will consider how new powers, like high street rental auctions, alongside existing tools such as enforcement action, acquisition options, partnership working and funding opportunities. The Council has already invested in public realm improvements in Sittingbourne Town Centre to enhance the environment. However, it's a challenging time for town centre businesses. Since the buildings are privately owned, the Council's direct ability to compel redevelopment or investment is limited. Securing change is difficult unless statutory thresholds for enforcement or acquisition are met. For wider support, government assistance for town centres like Sittingbourne has been provided through the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and there is also a working group exploring how funding through the Pride in Place initiative can benefit town centres such as Sittingbourne's.
Thank you, Councillor Wise. Councillor Miller, do you have a supplementary question?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. That are all our questions. Thank you, councillors. Agenda item 8 is the leader statement. I will ask the leader to read his statement. I will then ask the leaders of the opposition groups to respond in the usual way. Following that, I will invite other members to respond to the leader's statement. Members who are invited to speak will have 3 minutes. This item has an overall time limit of 30 minutes. To ensure broad fairness, I will try to invite responses from members of the administration and opposition groups in roughly equal numbers. This may mean I will deviate from the order in which members have indicated to speak. Can I please remind all members that responses must be to the issues raised in the Leader's Statement. I invite Councillor Tim Gibson to give a verbal statement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This evening I want to reflect on the Council's continued focus on regeneration, community wellbeing, planning and partnership working. I'll begin in Sheerness, where we have reached an important milestone in the Sheerness Revival project with the opening of the new Makers Studios at Masters House. This marks the completion of the first of 3 major regeneration schemes being delivered as part of the Council's £20 million investment into the Isle of Sheppey. It was a privilege to be involved in last week's ribbon-cutting ceremony, which saw a happy and welcome return to the borough of former leader Roger Truelove, who has retained a keen interest in the wider Sheerness Revival project. The studios are modern, sustainably built, and provide affordable professional spaces operated by the national enterprise charity Launch It. The studios offer mentoring and business support alongside workspace, helping young entrepreneurs to turn creativity into sustainable livelihoods. This builds on the earlier £1.5 million refurbishment of Masters House, which now hosts a thriving community of small businesses. Madam Mayor, regeneration is not just about buildings, it's about people and how communities function from day to day. That is why this council is giving equal emphasis to tackling loneliness and social isolation across Swale. This work is informed by feedback from residents and organisations who have highlighted barriers such as rural isolation, transport challenges, digital exclusion and a lack of confidence. Working with the Swale Voluntary Alliance and Swale CVS and funded through the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, this council is supporting a coordinated programme of practical action. This includes a Swale Activities Directory, a telephone befriending service for younger residents, loneliness champion training for volunteers and frontline staff, and work to support residents who are digitally excluded to get online and stay connected. The aim is simple but vital: to help people feel seen, supported and able to belong, and to ensure that no resident in Swale feels they have to face loneliness alone. Supporting residents through the cost of living also remains a priority. The council will continue to deliver our One Swale roadshows across the borough between January and March, bringing together charities and partner organisations to offer advice and practical help with bills, food and fuel, employment, health and wellbeing. The first event of this year will take place in Sheerness on the 29th of January. Madam Mayor, I also want to briefly highlight the launch of the Reg 18 consultation for the Council's next local plan, which sets out our early vision for how development should take place across Swale. This stage focuses on development management policies, the rules used to assess planning applications, and places a clear emphasis on infrastructure, design quality and environmental protection. The Council has chosen to bring forward these essential policies now, with a further consultation on potential development sites to follow later this year. This ensures that we are in a strong position to demand quality design, appropriate infrastructure, affordable housing and high environmental standards when sites are being considered. The consultation is open until the 23rd of February and I encourage all residents and stakeholders to take part. Staying with consultations, our Community Governance Review Stage 1 consultation is live and will close on the 9th of February. And I would ask you all to promote engagement from all of your residents. Moving on, I wanted to acknowledge that this year didn't start well for everyone. In fact, I can't imagine how awful it must have been for the residents of Faversham witnessing the sickening fire at the Alexandra Centre on New Year's Eve. I would like to thank Kent Fire and Rescue Service, other emergency responders and the local community for their swift and professional response. Thankfully, no one was injured and the Council is working closely with the Centre's management team and partners to support assessments and repairs. I visited the Centre and met with Graham Setterfield, the Director and Chair of the CIC, to witness the aftermath. I have to say that I have nothing but admiration for him, his fellow directors and staff in their dedication and tenacity in ensuring as much as possible that this is business as usual, although some events have had to inevitably be cancelled. Finally, I'd like to reflect on the importance of partnerships in keeping our communities safe. Recently, I visited the Kent, Surrey and Sussex Air Ambulance alongside leaders from across the county. Informative and enlightening presentations from the charity's Chief Executive and Clinical Director provided a clear insight into the complexity and importance of their life-saving services that they deliver across our region. However, one particular takeaway from the session for me is the need for each and every one of us to have an awareness of CPR, given that for every minute CPR is not commenced, the patient's chances of successful survival reduced by 10%. Earlier this week, an elderly resident who had collapsed by a major road in my ward was successfully resuscitated by people passing by. And whilst offering my congratulations to those kind individuals, it highlights if they hadn't been aware of how to implement CPR, the outcome could have been very, very different indeed. Madam Mayor, on that truly positive note, I'll sign off. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. I invite Councillor Lloyd Bowen to respond to the statement, please. Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Gibson, for your statement. I'm going to start off on a personal note. I 100% agree with you about CPR. As somebody also in public and other members in here have obviously had to deal with that, who have actually had to use it on other people. It is not pleasant. It is certainly not fun, and it is incredibly tiring if you ever have to do it. But the fact that that intervention can save lives, and it's a relatively simple intervention, pressing down on someone's chest and giving them some, if need be, some rescue breath, goes a long way to preserving life. Sadly, in my case, when I had to do it, it didn't work, but that wasn't through any fault of ours. I endorse the road shows and look forward to the one on the 29th of January, and may that be the start of a good programme and worthwhile programme. The Regulation 18 and Community Governance Review. Yes, it's out for consultation, an incredibly important consultation, because it will help shape the future of the current borough and potentially what comes thereafter. But we've got to get people to respond to it. We're already seeing people and comments on social media. It makes no difference. Comments on social media don't make any difference because we don't look at them. So we've got to do whatever we can to get those comments from social media actually into the right consultation on the website, for us to actually be able to use and do something with on both of those. I share your views about the Alexandra Centre. That was very, very sad, but also very glad that nobody was injured that evening, and no doubt the investigation and everything like that will take place, and see what occurs there. On the sense of community, I'm going to finish also with a bit of what was a really potentially sad story around Christmas, or just after the New Year, and it is a sense of community where you may have seen this in the press. Mabel the dog, a therapy dog at Tenham School, was dog-napped, in my view, from Borden. The impact that had so very quickly on the pupils of that school, and it was massive. It was devastating for them, and it hit social media. And I do believe through the power of social media that actually we put so much pressure on it. Fortunately, Mabel was then found Mabel was found in Dartford and has been returned to its owner and is back in doing the business as a therapy dog for the pupils at Tenham School. So there's a lot of influence which we can do using social media from something that was really sad end up such a good thing. Thank you, Mr. Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. I invite Councillor Mike Baldock to give response to the statement, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, the Sheerness revival is obviously good news, and it is great to see as well, as part of that, Masters House, which was heritage at risk, being brought back into use and protecting that building, that important building for Sheerness. And of course, the former councillor involved from here is involved, former councillor Knight, doing good work. And it's always important that we look out for our buildings at risk, and we try and do our best to protect the heritage. And we have the water tower over there as well, which is a major concern. I also welcome the progress on loneliness and social isolation. So, of course, something that the Swale Independents were very keen to see acted upon. And this is something that the Swale Independents are obviously very keen to see acted upon, and we welcome that it's being taken forward. In Swale West, we already have quite a few initiatives We have the Bobbing Loneliness Cafe, which happens on a monthly basis, is well attended, and a number of other small events that go on. And we will be having, as the chair of the Swale Area Committee of Calc, we are inviting Swale to address the next area committee to tell us about loneliness and social isolation and how we can tackle it. And we also have former councillor of Bromley, Aisha Cuthbert, talking about her experiences as well. So I'm hopeful that out in the parishes we can be doing our bit to tackle this social dreadful situation and help people. And finally, of course, we welcome the CGR progress, with the future looking very ominous for local voices across Kent. This is the one chance in a generation to get a town council for Sittingbourne and to give Sittingbourne a voice that will otherwise be lost in the echoing voids of unitary authority. So good to see things moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. I invite Councillor Hannah Perkin to give response to statement, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Leader, for your statement. The regeneration scheme is obviously paying dividends for young people in Sheppey, and I think that's something that is really positive. It's helping them to kind of live their best lives and build for their futures, and I think that it's a really impressive project. It would be wonderful to see something like that rolled out into other areas of the borough, or indeed the unitary, as the unitary comes in. Reducing loneliness is absolutely crucial, and the One Swale roadshows have really helped so many residents put real money back in their pockets when they've needed it the most, especially during the cost of living crisis. So they continue to be very effective for some of our most vulnerable residents. I welcome the news that Local Plan is moving forward with its policies. I think there's some really ambitious policies within the Local Plan that's just gone out to consultation. I hope that Policy and Resources look very seriously about whether they consider the community of Faversham can accommodate 4,000 extra houses. I certainly do not think that it can. I completely echo the huge thanks to Kent Fire and Rescue on their impressive and rapid response to the fire at the Alexander Centre. The team at the Alexander Centre and the staff and the volunteers that work there are a really dedicated and hard-working team. And as always, as it does, Faversham has rushed forward with offers of support from all kinds of different corners of the community. I also wanted to echo Councillor Baldock's points about community governance review. Local government is best when it is closest to the residents, and I really worry that the unitaries are going to really distance their councillors from the people that they represent, and so any effort that we can put in to reduce that gap is for better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkin. I invite Councillor Richard Palmer to give response to the statement, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think most have been said, but I think it is great that the regeneration is taking place in Sheppey, and I think the loneliness project, as Councillor Baldock said, was started at his behest and moved forward very well. And it's great when things work together in the community, when we as councillors can see an objective and an aim and work together for it. And it's not until you start going about and seeing how many projects are running where loneliness is part of it. So I think one of the things to take away is we can achieve great things when we work together. It's great that the local plan is moving forward and is out to public consultation. But just on the CPR thing, CPR does buy time, it keeps the brain alive, but the big deal is an automated external defibrillator, an AED, and members and this council have provided rural communities, the town centres and other places with AEDs, and in fact, the delay of the shock from an AED, that's where the survival of the 10 minutes delay comes in, 10% decrease for the delay. But the sentiment's there, and the more people who know it, the unfortunate thing about knowing CPR is you're never likely to use it on yourself. But thank you very much, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. I invite Councillor Alistair Gould to give response to the statement, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I'm sort of going to go to the end of the Leader's statement to start with about the CPR. The best way of surviving a heart attack is not to have one in the first place. And actually, several elements of the Leader's statement, they're hidden in there, are things which will stop people getting heart attacks in the first place. Being economically active, being integrated with the community, not having loneliness, these have statistically proven effects on heart disease. And in the Regulation 18, there's elements in there about active travel, encouraging activity, and that, above everything else, will stop you getting a heart attack in the first place. So all of these things do link together. CPR is the end of the line, if you like. But a healthy community starts a lot further back than that. And I'm pleased to see the progress this council is making. The other element in the Regulation 18 I'm very pleased to see in there is the emphasis on net zero design for domestic and employment buildings. I think this is one of the most important things. If we can get this through, that will have a very long-lasting impact on the borough and even the world to a very small extent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gould. I now invite other members to respond to the statement. The first person I have is Councillor Whiting, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to thank the leader for drawing attention to the Community Governance Review consultation that's out and that closes on the 9th. As chairman of that working group, I want to reassure the members of the public who do take the trouble to write and do take the trouble to make their comments known, that the working group that I chair will take very seriously every single word of every single comment that comes in. And I just wonder whether the leader would agree with me when he responds, that there's a job of work to do now for this council to gain the trust of people to respond to consultations following the various decisions over the car parking debacle, where 4,000 people's views over time, I believe, were summarily ignored. I can assure people that if they respond to the CGR review, that their comments will be heard and action will be taken to ensure that their views are acted upon. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Whiting. Councillor Worcester, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for councillors that attended the opening of the Masters House garages. It was a really lovely event, and the work has been beautifully done. My dad spent a long time building numerous properties on Sheppey, and I can absolutely see that there is a benefit to that building, not only in terms of what it's there to support, but also in its aesthetic. And the Sheppey community are absolutely entitled to have beautiful pieces of building returned to them in an absolutely beautiful condition, which it has been done. I would, however, like to apply a little bit of positive pressure in that we are also looking forward to the completion of the Sheppey Leisure Centre, which will obviously bring more facilities available. Most importantly, I would like to congratulate the comms team, especially the officers involved in the Sheerness Revival project, because I feel it had a bit of a slow start with the comms, but the updates and the sharing of information around the updates for that project have been second to none. And I would also like to congratulate the staff at EKC College working with Swale Borough Council in that the updates for their building are going to produce a fantastic opportunity for our children to succeed in the classroom and education environment, however that looks for children individually. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Worcester. Councillor Mistrup, please.
Thank you. The regeneration on the island is really good. I'm really glad to hear that, because the community on the island is really strong, and they deserve to have some regeneration. The borough has been in decline for quite a number of decades, and it's really good to see stuff coming back round. And I'm hoping that Milton's conservation area and its historic buildings will have some will be taken into consideration as well by the council eventually, because much like Sheppey was, Milton is declining, and I don't agree with that, and neither do the residents. And coming on to the CGR, I'm worried that not enough residents are aware of it. I've done my best to try and push it online as I can, and I do thank Mike and Mike for their excellent videos explaining the CGR. I thought they were really good. I really like Mike's. Thank you for mentioning Milton. And yeah, it was a very positive statement. So yeah, good.
Thank you, Councillor Mistrup. Could I please ask the public that are in the gallery, could you please keep quiet while the members are speaking so we can all hear. Thank you. Councillor Harrison, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was delighted to see Honourable Alderman, former leader of this council, Roger Truelove, at Master's House on whatever day it was last week. Wednesday. It was raining. Most days are raining, aren't they? We are very fortunate to have had his vision at this council. There were people who, well, why are you picking Sheerness? Why can't you do Sittingbourne? What about Faversham? You have to have a priority based on need, and you had to have a project that could justify 20 million. As it happens, we could have spent 30. And I'm delighted with what we've done so far, and I know Rog was really pleased when he came in last week. What I think will be really the icing on the cake is when the college extension is up and running, because that has been a vision of his since he got on this council and to Kent County Council, that we have better further education on the Isle of Sheppey, not just for Sheppey children, but also for children on the mainland who have been let down so much over so many years. And with the changes to the school structure and with what EKC are doing with the extension down there, I really think things are looking up. But in terms of other places, it is important that members have visions. Don't chop and change it every 5 minutes. Have a vision, put it on the shelf, keep adding to it, giving a bit here and a bit there, so that if and when money comes up from governments, whichever governments it is, then you've got something that you can take down and work on. Because when round one of the LUF came out, this council, in particular Councillor Truelove, got stick for not putting in a bid under round one of LUF, particularly from across the chamber and the local rags. We had nothing sitting on the shelf ready to go, and Roger worked with the local MP, Gordon Henderson, and said, we will put together something that we want to win, not just chuck something in and hope that they'll throw pennies at us. So I'm hoping that that is the philosophy that we are going to be taking forward. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Ben Martin, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Leader, for your statement. I'll follow on from Councillor Harrison and say that when we look at Master's House and the regeneration of Sheppey, what we look at is a group of councillors that looked beyond their term of office back in 2019, that got together and could see further than the end of their nose and go, actually, whether this does benefit my constituents in my ward or not doesn't matter. It benefits the whole of Swale, and it benefits the people that needed it most. Most of the projects that you've listed started back in that previous 4-year period. Whether it be looking at the road shows in their original guise as they were under the cabinet member for health and wellbeing and the deputy, whether that be looking at the regeneration, which was led by Councillor Bonney with the rest of cabinet behind it. It goes to show that when we do come together, when we do think actually 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, what's going to be best for the people of this borough, we make good decisions. That's the same with the Reg 18, with the policies that are in there. None of us are looking at it as this is going to benefit me in 2 years' time. Certainly no one was looking at that in 2022, going, these policies are going to help me out at the ballot box. We were looking at it and going, these are going to work for the people of this borough for the long term. And regardless of how long we may have left under LGR, we have to continue to do that. And that's where CGR comes in. I would encourage everybody, regardless of which part of the borough they are in, to respond to that CGR consultation. You do have the free text box at the end to use if you want to make a recommendation that's not already been made and put forward. If there's a change that you want, to make sure that your local council is kept as local to you as possible so that they can feed in when we have, if we have these unitary authorities that are that much further away. In the meantime, the message to members is continue what we started back in 2019. Look further ahead, work together where we can, and differ where we do differ. Do it nicely, do it politely, and make sure that we're doing it on the issue, not on the personality.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. I have an indication online. Councillor Leanne Moore, would you like to speak, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it was a very positive statement, and sort of speaking about the young people and that. I think it's great that the Master's House has got the space, and obviously EKC with the further education. But I think what we need to remember is there is still 10 children on the island that have no schools places. So while it's great doing what we have all of this for the younger and the future generation, there is still future generation at the moment without education.
Thank you, Councillor. I will now invite Councillor Tim Gibson to respond to the members' comments, please. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And wasn't there lots of them? I'll start with Councillor Boyne. And yeah, that was a terrible thing with the therapy dog. And I think quite often we underestimate the value of animals. And I know certainly at the school that my daughter teaches at, they have dogs that go in there, and they really are calming for some of the children that need that additional support and so on. Getting people to respond, that is a key issue for us all. I can assure you that myself, and a deputy, Councillor Wise, has absolutely hammered it into the whole of our group that you must, it's not a request, it's an instruction, respond, because if we aren't seen to do it, then we're not leading the show. So that really is important, but it's equally important and incumbent on us to get out there and let people know that it's happening. Because, I still see people in my ward that haven't a clue, doesn't know what it is, don't know what, and yet, you've tried. So it can be a challenge. Councillor Baldock with the heritage at risk stuff. It's fantastic what you do in terms of heritage. What did we do before we had you? We didn't have one, did we? Everything was falling apart. So yeah, and it is so important. The loneliness you mentioned out at Bobbin, yeah, I know that the cafe got out there, and I've seen social media on that. That seems to be a really positive thing for us. Councillor Perkin, I know you're all over things like the cost of living crisis and all of the other issues in terms of social need for the people that you serve. And then Councillor Richard Palmer, again quite positive about the regeneration on the Isle of Sheppey, but being selfish, I think I would try to resuscitate myself if I could. And you're right, AADs are the kind of the gold standard way to go. But of course, there's not one of those on every corner, and we have to try and do our best. And then along came Councillor Gold, who trumped us all and said, it's better to be healthy in the first place and not need CPR. I couldn't agree more, but we're certainly not there yet. And all of the social determinants that you mentioned will, no doubt, in future get us along to that place, I'm sure. Councillor Whiting, you mentioned consultations. Have people been put off responding? I think if it's an issue that people are passionate about, they will always respond in large numbers. If it isn't, then it's like trying to drag an anchor, through mud. It's really is difficult. But certainly in the CGR element, I appreciate what you're doing as the chair there and Mike as a vice chair. And we'll do everything that we can to try and make sure that you get those responses, even if it's just to keep you up at night reading the blooming things. And then Councillor Worcester, thank you for those really positive comments. And I want to align myself with those as well and saying what an absolutely fantastic job, because officers quite often get left out in all of this. But our officers have absolutely worked their socks off to make this happen. Always gone over and above and beyond. And bizarrely, they're in the background when we had the ribbon cutting session. And someone said, well, it's a political thing, you'd expect that. But frankly, I just want to recognise formally that the work they do is absolutely outstanding. And then the elf on the shelf. Sorry, Councillor Harrison. Hold on. You. Councillor Harrison, you did say It's on the shelf. Now, you're the only person here that knows where that shelf is. So, on that basis, I'm assuming that you are the original elf on the shelf. And you're right, the philosophy of actually looking forward, not looking back, is really important, but we'll do learn lessons from the past. And I think with this work, we have learned some massive lessons from the past, and we will going forward, because quite clearly, through, as Councillor Martin said, digging our reels in, moving forward, having that vision, it has worked. And then if things work, why would you change them? Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. That ends my dribbling. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Members, agenda item 9. A motion on border emergency has been received. This item has a time limit of 30 minutes. Councillor Richard Palmer, I invite you to propose the motion. You have 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just before I speak, can I ask for a bit of clarification? As a members' briefing was sent round, and have all members read that briefing as it supports the motion? It would be nice if we could have clarification on that, or does it need to be read out to members?
Would you like me to stop the clock?
Yes, please.
Madam Mayor, there is, as it says, there is scope in the Constitution for officers to provide a factual briefing. That briefing was sent to all councillors. I have no way of knowing whether councillors have read that, because clearly, but we have sent it to all councillors to have the opportunity to read it. Thank you.
Councillor Palmer?
So I take it the motion is as read, so I can just move the motion. So I'd like to propose the motion on border emergency. So, Madam Mayor and members, I move this motion on border emergency owing to the immigration pressure and the downstream impacts on this council and the residents of Swale. Let me be clear from the outset. This motion is not anti-worker. It's not anti-agriculture. Seasonal farm workers are essential to Swale's farming economy, and properly managed, lawful, time-limited migration has long played a role in supporting food production and local business. But this motion is about scale, control and consequences. Swale Borough Council holds a statutory responsibility for housing, homelessness prevention, temporary accommodation, planning control, environmental health and community wellbeing, cohesion, to name but a few. While immigration and border policy are set nationally, the impacts fall locally on housing availability, GPs, school places and council funded services. It was evident of the impact in the briefing note, creating 5.2 additional demand, 1,200 to 1,600 residents per year, population growth. So there's evidence in that brief. Members regularly raise concerns about large-scale development. You heard one mentioned this evening, including Garden Village proposals, Highstead Valley at Bobbing and around Faversham. Yet, we must be honest, the UK birth rate is declining. Natural population growth does not justify development of this scale. If we are truthful with our residents, a significant driver of this housing demand is mass immigration, combined with the weak, unenforced immigration policies. It is no good opposing overdevelopment locally while supporting or failing to challenge the national policies that make this inevitable. This motion simply sets out the reality and asks government to take responsibility for the consequences of its decisions or lack of, and I commend this motion to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Councillor Mistruck, I invite you to second the motion and ask if you wish to speak now or reserve your right.
I second the motion. I'll reserve my right.
Thank you very much. An amendment to the motion has been received, circulated to members and published on the council's website.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. I don't know whether you want the the amendment read out or taken as read, but I have several procedural points that I'd like to raise as point of orders.
Let's hear them then, Councillor Palmer.
Right. We'll be looking at Part 3.1, Rule 3.1.16.8 on page 14 of the Council's Constitution. Amendments must not negate the motion. This amendment, if you look at Resolution A, population change, including migration, is one of several factors contributing to increased demand, alongside more substantial issues, including wider housing supply constraints. This is problematic. This wording replaces the original finding that legal and illegal migration pressures are contributing factors, thereby negating the motion rather than amending to it. Point 2. Again, Rule 3.11.16.4 and Rule 3.1.14.3 on page 8. Paragraphs 8 to 10. The Council notes the certain economic social benefits of migration across Kent. No evidence whatsoever. No evidence submitted for that. Why this is procedurally problematic, this paragraph introduces a sub...
Sorry, Madam Mayor, the member in on his point of order is discussing the motions. It is not points of order.
These paragraphs introduce... Sorry, it is a point of order. If you're going to make a point of order, quote the paragraph and the section or the law that you're making it over. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Palmer, when we're discussing this, you speak to me, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Madam Mayor, for pointing that out. So, under the rule that I've quoted, this is problematic because it substitutes the policy narrative rather than amending it. And again, that is out and not part of the Constitution. Assertions outside the Council's, this is point 3, and this is under Rule 3.
Sorry, Councillor Palmer, can I just ask, how many points of order do you have?
Well, does the can I ask, the monitoring officer might be able to confirm, Madam Mayor, does the Constitution limit the number of points of order? We can take them one at a time if you so wish.
Councillor Palmer, I was just asking a question.
Well, I think
how many
I have
points
two
of
more
order
points of orders to make.
Thank you.
That was, well, Amendment 3, Paragraph 6. A person without legal immigration status cannot claim public assistance, cannot legally rent property in a private sector. This is, so in the amendment, this is procedurally incorrect and problematic. These are definite statements of national law outside the Council's remit and unnecessary for resolving the motion. Point 4, Resolution B1, alongside the economic contribution of migrant resident workers. This is problematic. The cumulative effect reaffirms the purpose of the motion, amounting to it's fundamentally changing the motion. It's turning it on its head. There is a problem. This amendment should not have been accepted. It shouldn't be accepted now. And if it is accepted, it constitutionally changes and sets a precedent that any motion that comes to this chamber can be fundamentally changed and negated. And if members accept that, then I think you're doing yourselves a very grave injustice. And it also says in the Constitution, at paragraph 3.1.16.4, I accept it's a bit of a mouthful, but that's how the Constitution's phrased. It says it can substitute words. It doesn't say it can substitute whole paragraphs and totally rewrite the motion. If you're going to accept this sort of an amendment to a motion, you're going to lead to very serious problems going forward. Over to you, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. I will now ask I will now ask the monitoring officer to address your concerns.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Palmer. So I would respectfully suggest that I think the first point that you made as a point of order absolutely is a point of order, and it's a proper point of order, and it goes to the constitutional, what is an amendment to a motion. I'll go for B, C and D as well as the bit that you said as well. So it is perfectly appropriate to leave out words and insert other words, or to insert and add words. And obviously, inevitably, a amendment changes a motion. That is the fundamental nature of an amendment. That is why it exists, in order that a motion can be adjusted. You're quite right to say that an amendment shouldn't negate the motion. Inevitably, how much change becomes a negation is something of a matter of opinion. Plainly, something which is binary, whereby the motion says yes and this says no, that would negate the motion. Where the motion is a quite wide-ranging and broad motion, and where an amendment is also quite wide-ranging and broad, it is a much more subjective matter. In relation to the acceptance of a motion, I think I'll just quickly deal with the other 4 points I felt were effectively addressing the amendment itself rather than points of order. But your fundamental thing about it negating it is a point of order which needs to be addressed. Obviously, you know that you and I spent a long time on the motion, making sure that your motion was acceptable. And indeed, the Mayor considered the amendment to the motion, and the Mayor decided that the amendment to the motion didn't negate the motion. And on a point of order and on the decision in relation to accepting an amendment, the Mayor's voice and decision is final. And I would say that ultimately you have the opportunity as a member of the council to speak against the amendment and to make all the points that you made as point of orders as point against the amendment. And obviously members will vote on the amendment and determine whether they felt it was an appropriate amendment or not.
Thank you. I was now complete what I was saying. Now that motion has been proposed and seconded, I invite Councillor Perkin to propose your amendment. Councillor Perkin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Every one of us represents residents who are anxious about housing. Behind the statistics are human stories, a relationship breaking down, a landlord selling up, a parent choosing safety over staying put, a young person with nowhere left to go. When we talk about housing demand, this is what it looks like on the ground. Those concerns are real and they deserve to be treated seriously. This is why this amendment matters. It does not deny the very real pressures facing Swale, but it insists that when we explain those pressures, we do so truthfully, proportionately, and with care for the impact our words have on our communities. Between January 2024 and December 2025, Swale made 753 social housing lets. Only 33, just 4%, went to households where the lead applicant was non-UK national. In the same period, there were 1,267 homelessness applications, of which 94, about 7%, were from non-UK nationals. And of the 582 households placed in temporary accommodation, 54, about 9%, were non-UK nationals. Those figures matter because they show clearly that housing pressures in Swale are not being driven by one group of people. All those that attended training last week will know that the most common reasons residents approach the council are being asked to leave by family or friends, the end of a private rental tenancy, or fleeing domestic abuse. Being silent on the latter negates our white ribbon pledge as a council. As councillors, we are bound by the Nolan principles of public life: integrity, honesty, objectivity, and leadership. Integrity means not implying causes that are not supported by evidence. Honesty means correcting the record when claims are not true. Objectivity means relying on data, not assumption, and leadership means choosing language that reassures. This amendment recognises the scale of the challenge we face. Over 2,000 households are on the housing register, competing for a supply that simply does not meet demand. Temporary accommodation numbers remain high at significant financial and human cost. Officers have already taken action to reduce reliance on expensive B&B accommodation, and that work deserves recognition. The amendment asks us to speak about migration with balance and perspective. Migration is part of population change, and population change has always been part of Swale's story. Migrant residents are our neighbours and colleagues. They work in our NHS, care homes, farms, logistics centres, schools and local businesses. Reform's own leader, and indeed Councillor Palmer, has just said that Kent County Council has recognised the importance of migrant workers to our economy. Acknowledging that reality does not weaken our case for support, it strengthens it. Most importantly, the amendment strengthens our voice to government. It asks for what our communities actually need: more housing supply, sustainable funding for temporary accommodation, support for integration, workforce stability, and better data so councils can make plans and decisions honestly. Madam Mayor, public confidence is fragile. It is built when residents see fairness, evidence and principled leadership, not easy answers to hard questions. Supporting this amendment is an opportunity to show that we take that responsibility seriously.
Time,
Oppose the
Councillor.
amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkin. Councillor Charles Gibson, I invite you to second the amendment. You may speak now or reserve your right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second and reserve my right.
Thank you. I would like to ask Councillor Palmer, as the proposer of the motion, whether he wishes to exercise his right of reply to the debate on the amendment.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think, as you hear, we are here to debate a government failure of securing the borders. And their failure to secure the borders is having profound pressures on the people of Swale. We have the lowest GP ratio, or a very high lack of GPs in Swale, with some of the highest numbers. And yet an army camp has just been taken over where our cadets, probably from Swale, use and can't go anymore because it's full.
Sorry.
Point of order, Madam Mayor, that is incorrect.
Can you tell what part? Can you ask Councillor Perkin to stand when she makes a point of order, and then I will know to sit down, and also to quote the reference for the point of order, please.
Councillor Perkin.
Withdrawn.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer, would you like to continue?
Thank you. Where was I before I was interrupted? Oh, yes. There are so many pressures that our residents are facing. And yet we sit in here and we ignore those pressures and we laugh and snigger at people. On what evening? We had a confidential briefing, didn't we? And we all said we wouldn't snigger. Well, that didn't last long, did it? It's all right to snigger if you're from one certain side. And that's the thing. If you have a different opinion, you'll be named and abused. So, if you want a nice, friendly atmosphere, there are many problems in this borough. We are turning a blind eye to it, and we are turning a blind eye to the problems at our peril. That amendment turns around the motion. And if you as members accept such an amendment, the public are here, the press are here, the public can see this, they can look at our constitution, they can see what is said there. If you support the amendment, you're supporting driving a coach and horses through our constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. I now invite members to debate the amendment. This is the amendment we're debating, councillors. Councillor Ashley Wise, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I care deeply about this issue, as do my residents, for the sake of security and fairness, but also humanity. I want to see these issues resolved. Unfortunately, no amount of amendment makes this a motion I believe we should be debating this evening. I would invite the proposer of the substantive motion to cast his mind back to our last full council meeting to these very wise words. Immigration control is a national responsibility. Local councils have no authority over border control or asylum quotas. Passing this motion creates a false impression that Swale can influence migration. I cannot support a politically motivated motion. They're not my words, Councillor Palmer, they're yours. They were the very reason you voted against the motion we debated at our last full council meeting. I joined you in voting against that motion, and because of those very wise words, whether this is amended or not, I will be voting against this motion. In agreement with those words, first and foremost, this is a chamber where we do business on behalf of our residents, where we govern. It's not a debating society where motions are brought forward and passed for social media likes. We have a cross-party budget working group to produce a budget that delivers financial stability for our borough. We have £1.5 million of government funding to allocate to local high streets, assets and open spaces. These are just two of the big impactful issues well within our grasp to shape and do something about as local councillors. So do perhaps consider, all of us in this room, if you've had your fullest input into those thus far. But amended or not, I'm voting against it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gould, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I mean, the headline of this motion is about the impact of migration. And
Sorry, Councillor Gould, we're talking to the amendment,
yes,
not to the...
I am.
Okay, just
coming
wanted to make
onto
that clear.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I think the impact, the amendment actually then does address that headline for the motion, that it does talk about what the impact of immigration is on the borough and how positive it is in many areas. So in that sense, I would certainly be willing to support the motion, the amendment, because it brings clarity and truth into this area. There was mention there's a lot of conflation in the motion, which I think the amendment sorts out, between legal migration, internal migration within the country, with people coming down from foreign parts such as London, and the very small amount of people who arrive by irregular routes. So I think there's a lot of confusion in the motion, which the amendment seeks to address, and particularly when reference is made to access for GP services. I point out that actually a large number of the GPs who have been recruited locally recently have actually come as part of, they are immigrants from countries that possibly would be better holding on to their doctors, but still they are coming here to help us. So I think we need to look at the motion, and the amendment, I feel, makes it a much better reflection of the truth of the situation. So I will be supporting the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gould. Councillor Benjo Martin, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No surprise that I'm in full support of the amendment. On the first basis, the fact that it actually does tidy up the wording and make it make sense. I don't like Councillor Gould mentions, the actual topic of the motion in general, but the amendment does go some way to making it actually meet the facts on the ground. When we read that briefing note, and you can try and mislead using the briefing note all you like, whoever you are, 8% of the population of Swale was not born in the United Kingdom. 4% of our housing register allocations were to people who were not born in the United Kingdom. So does that not mean that people not born in the United Kingdom are half as likely to actually get allocated? If they make up 8% of the population and only taking 4% of the allocation? I think it does. I think when we go through what the amendment says, it actually talks about the situation on the ground. It applies evidence. It applies the facts as they are, rather than hyperbole. This amendment is a good amendment. Now, would I want to be debating the motion in the first place? Not at all, because actually I think it's a complete nonsense, and it is purely to try and stoke up the same levels of nonsense that we had in this chamber last month. It is a political weapon being used by the Reform leader and their group following last month's nonsense. And if you want to talk about sniggering and you want to talk about attack and fairness, after last month's meeting, my house was attacked and I had a swastika painted on it. I can't see anybody doing that tonight. And if the public gallery wants to be silent for a minute, I'll finish off. Oh, wait.
Please continue, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's what happens when you stoke fear, when you stoke division. People get attacked, their property gets attacked. That's not acceptable. This amendment is purely about trying to make what was a bad motion a half-decent one, and acknowledging the facts on the ground and the benefits, as well as the challenges caused by migration to this borough. Thank you.
Thank
Madam
you,
Mayor.
Councillor. Yes, Councillor Palmer.
Can I make a point of explanation, as I've clearly been labelled or...
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I can't hear.
If the public gallery can keep it down, please.
Just to
Councillor
answer
Palmer.
Councillor Martin, I think what happened to his house and what happened is wrong. No one should face that sort of barrage or abuse. But it doesn't mean that people don't have genuine fears. And some of the language that was used is quite inflammatory in itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer.
Sorry, can I clarify what point of order that was, please?
No, it's a point of personal explanation.
No, it's a point of personal explanation, Councillor Braun. Councillor Mistruck, please.
Thank you, Madam
Point of
Mayor.
order, Madam Mayor. 3.1.16.8. Can we move to the vote? Otherwise, we're not going to have a chance to actually debate the motion.
So, do you feel there's been sufficient, and also you've got the person who seconded who reserved their right to speak hasn't spoken yet. So
I'm going-
perhaps if you allow Councillor Mishuk to speak, because there's not been much on that.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Mistruck, I will allow you to speak, and then I will go straight to Councillor Gibson to second the amendment, and then we'll go to the vote.
Yep,
Thank you,
okay.
Councillor Mistruck.
Thank you. Well, I heard initially young people be brought up. I'm a young person. I can't get a house. A lot of people my age can't get a house either, can't get a job. And why? You see everywhere popping up new businesses, not run by local people, run by migrants, and they are employing migrants. They aren't employing local people. What is about local people first? You might say that that's not real, or the statistics don't say that, but it's true. We're all seeing it. Residents are rightly unhappy. And we've gotten to the point where we can't even debate migration because it's controversial. This is politics. We should be entitled to debate whatever we want. And we shouldn't be pressuring people and laughing at people for having an opinion. This is a concern of thousands across our borough and millions across this country.
Councillor Mistruck, sorry, are you still speaking to the amendment,
Yes,
please?
I will get there.
Thank you.
This motion was intended to speak for thousands across the borough who have been saying at the pub, why doesn't Keir Starmer know about this? We want the leader of the council to go to Keir Starmer and announce a border emergency because there is one.
Councillor Mistruck, to the amendment, please.
This amendment is a kick in the teeth towards the residents who are worried, rightly, about the demographic decimation of our country and the Swale area. Population change is not a good thing. Countries exist off of the nationality that lives there. We shouldn't be importing loads and loads of people because we have shortages. We should be putting local people first and raising them and educating them so they fill the spaces, so that other countries around the world can have their people where they are. We are all part of one big collection of countries, but we shouldn't be mixing together loads of different nationalities, because as we've seen in London, in Birmingham, everywhere, those areas are absolutely like hell on earth. I work.
Madam Mayor, it's speaking to the mayor.
Right, I'm sorry, but if we get any more interruption, I will go straight to an adjournment.
Well, yeah, and also the people.
I'm sorry, but
the people.
Councillors are now adjourned. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I'm sick of people like this. Demographic pessimist. Where's one in the security here? Why motion? Because you know why? This is the motion of the British public. And we speak for absolute everything. You see what happened here last time. And you still got the right who's doing this. And you still got the right who's doing this. And you still got the right to it. And it is true. And everybody, do you know what's well with the statistics? Any single person who has a British passport, I want to declare to foreign national. And just because you have a British every single one of your securities now, not English Alex. Every single one of them.
You all right? You feel safe? If you want to go now, you can. Have they gone downstairs?
Thank you, members. Please be seated. I won't be a second, Councillor Baldock. Oh, in fact, actually, Councillor Baldock, was there something you wanted? It was a point of order or something? Okay, you may have a while. Councillor Mistook, I believe you were still speaking when I had to go to adjournment. Would you like to continue or have you finished?
I think I proved my point.
Thank you, Councillor Mistook. I appreciate that. Councillor Gibson, Charles Gibson, you have the right to... You reserved your right to second the amendment?
Thank you,
a long
Madam.
time ago.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've listened with interest to this debate, and so I'll hopefully be relatively brief. I agree with many of my colleagues who feel this motion, as it currently stands, is beyond the pale, but it would be unchristian of me not to attempt to save it, for salvation is available to all of us, no matter how fallen. That is why we felt it was important that we engage in good faith with this motion and deal with the housing emergency aspect of it that this council has declared and remains committed to, and so that is the basis on which we wrote this amendment. I would remind members of the importance of facts in our decision-making process. Facts do not care about our political views, our biases, our preferences, our street views that we see. They simply are, and they are not affected by those things in our lives. Just 8% of Swale residents are not born in Britain. Less than 4% of our housing list come from this category. This tiny share of our population are not the problem, and blaming them is inaccurate and dangerous. We must do more to solve the housing crisis, but we cannot do it on the back of our neighbours with these minuscule numbers and these biases leading to that behaviour. That is what this amendment does. It brings us back to a centred, housing-focused motion, and I commend it to you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. I had a proposal that we go straight to the vote. Are we willing to do that on the amendments? Thank you, councillors. With a show of hands, please. All those in favour of the amendments, please raise your hand clearly. All those not in favour of the amendment, please raise your hand clearly. Any abstentions? One. The amendment is lost. We will now debate the substantive motion. So, Councillor Baldock. Thank you. Right, okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I read this motion very closely. I read that it says both legal migration has a sustained and material downstream impact on local authorities, a strain on council-funded services. I note that we are resolved to formally recognise that legal migration impacts housing availability and community cohesion. I heard it said earlier, I think that's what it was meant to say, but I heard earlier that people are coming into this country and people can't get a house. People can't get a job. Some of our council staff are immigrants. How do you think they feel when reading this? Do we see them as a pressure? Is that how we judge them? They're just a pressure when they're helping people with their services? When they're helping people with our borough? That's what this motion says. They're a pressure to be worried about, to write to government about. We really think if we write to the government about the housing situation, they're going to say, oh yeah, we'll reduce Swale's target. No. Their answer will be, increase your housing numbers then. House them as well as the other people we want you to house. The Londoners. But I also hear how immigrants are a pressure on our education. There's some councillors here that are immigrants. Councillor Noy isn't with us tonight. But Councillor Mistook, you're from an immigrant family. Whose job are you taking? Whose job are your family taking? When you were at school, was that taking the place of somebody, a true Brit? Do you live in a house that a true Brit could be living in? Or is it okay because that was in the past? Is it okay because you're white? I don't know. I'm trying to see the difference. Why legal migrants are a pressure on our housing, our jobs, in fact everything about social cohesion. You don't include yourself and your family. Confused. But I hope someone tonight, and actually I'm about to do it, will just reassure our staff that the majority of people on this council fully respect them, are fully grateful for what they do, and think this motion is a pile of hogwash.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. Obviously, we have got 30 minutes on this motion. I'm going to extend it because we've already used up that way over that time discussing the amendment. So I want to get as many views as I can here tonight. Councillor Bowen, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yesterday was Holocaust Memorial Day, a day where we remember the 6 million Jewish men, women and children murdered in the Holocaust, and all those killed in later genocides. We honour their memory by standing hard against hatred, anti-Semitism and intolerance, things we should never forget and never say should happen again. But sadly, in this day and age, it feels at times we drift closer and closer to those darkest of times. This motion raises important and legitimate concerns, and the pressure on housing, temporary accommodation and council services in Swale are real. No one disputes that. But this motion asks us to formally attribute those pressures to both legal and illegal migration without providing the evidence needed to justify that conclusion, and that matters. The dominant drivers of homelessness and temporary accommodation use in Swale are well documented. A shortage of genuinely affordable homes, rising private rents, the loss of social housing over decades and welfare constraints. These factors affect many local residents who have lived here all their lives. The motion does not demonstrate that migration is a primary or even proportionate cause of these pressures locally. Second, on HMOs, we debated Article 4 and tighter regulation, but that debate was about poor quality private sector housing, speculative landlord behaviour and planning control. It was not supported by evidence showing migration as the casual driver. Conflating the two risks misrepresenting the basis on which this council has already acted. Third, most asylum seekers are not eligible for mainstream housing or benefits. The motion blurs important legal distinctions and rises overstating local discretion and local impact. And finally, while writing to government is always an option, this motion asks us to formally endorse a narrative that has not been evidenced in Swale-specific data. Public confidence is built on accuracy, fairness, not implication. The data that has been shared to us shows that Swale is not, in my opinion, subject to additional costs any more than any other council, or indeed is less. The proposers of this motion and some political groups seem to want to relate every problem here in our great borough, county and country to those pesky illegal immigrants. And I agree, illegal immigration is a problem. But on some areas, the harsh reality is the issues are driven from ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Councillor Hunt, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's a lot that I do actually agree with in this motion coming forward, but it comes down to that evidence, and as Councillor Bowen said, we haven't got, from part A of this, where we formally recognise that both legal and illegal migration pressures are contributing to housing and service challenges within Swale. We have had data sent to us, and that doesn't prove that there is a problem. Part B and C of this I could agree with, but we need to look at home first. We are, as a council, deal with our housing policies. The housing policies that we've got probably create more problems than actually migration, immigration is doing. For instance, the Conservatives had 4 years for residency on the housing allocations policy. That was reduced down to 2 years under coalition, which Councillor Palmer was actually a cabinet member for at that time. So under his watch, there is actually changes that have had an impact on the housing problem that we've got in Swale. So we need to, I think, look at our own policy first, see what we can do to change that and help those residents that have been in the borough for longer, that do need housing. And then we can then go forward and say, if we've got the evidence that we have got illegal migration pressures that is causing us problems with housing, we then take that forward and deal with something about it. But there are problems that government need to deal with, but we need to look at it locally first, see what we can do before we start saying what we are trying to, well, what is put forward for this motion. So I can't agree it as this stands unless the Part 8 is changed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Perkin, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've heard some absolutely wild things this evening. So this motion is not a serious housing strategy. It's not an evidence-based intervention. It's a Reform UK press release dressed up as council business. And Swale deserves better than that. Yes, housing pressure is real. Yes, temporary accommodation costs are crippling councils up and down the country, but this motion doesn't tackle a single root cause of that. It doesn't propose a single additional home, it doesn't regulate a single rogue landlord, and it doesn't secure a single extra pound of funding. What it does do is point the finger outwards at migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. And there is no such thing as illegal migration, there is irregular routes. This is classic reform politics. Take a genuine crisis, strip out the complexity, blur the facts and redirect public anger away from failed housing policy, a lot of which was overseen by a bunch of Tories that Nigel Farage has welcomed with open arms recently, and straight onto the most politically convenient target. Let's be absolutely clear. Swale's housing crisis is not caused by people arriving in small boats. It was caused by years of underbuilding, a broken private rental sector, and a national governments of all different colours that have done nothing to fix either. Yet this motion deliberately lumps together asylum seekers, resettled refugees, legal migration and illegal migration into one amorphous threat. This isn't accidental, that's a political tactic. It's designed to create an impression of invasion, pressure and loss of control, exactly the kind of language that reform thrives on. And what's the most telling thing? There is no local evidence in this motion, no figures, no comparisons, no proof that migration is the primary driver of Swale's housing pressures, just assertion, repetition and implication. That's not scrutiny, that is dog whistle. We are told this is about public confidence, but public confidence is not built on scapegoating, it's built by honesty, by saying that councils are underfunded, housing supply is broken, and the private rental market has been allowed to run wild. Reform offers convenient villains and no solutions. This motion follows the same playbook. And here's the real danger. Once councils start passing motions like this, we normalise the idea that social failure should always be blamed on outsiders. That corrodes trusts, it weakens community cohesion, and it lowers the standard of political debate in this chamber. I maybe naively never thought I would hear abject racism in this chamber. Racism is a stain on democratic society, and it has no place here or in our borough. Madam Mayor, Swale does not need cultural politics imported from Westminster fringe parties. We need leadership, evidence and solutions. This motion offers none of those. Reject it.
Councillor Harrison, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I tend to agree with Councillor Perkins' comments there. There is great concern amongst a lot of people in this country about migration, but stoking division and downright lies and innuendo is not going to help that. Talking to people, reasoning, finding information and facts and giving it to them is what's going to help the situation. What's also not going to help the situation is turning down social housing for our residents who have been on the list for years. You're not helping your own residents, and then you say, oh, it's migrants taking all the social housing. Well, we ain't got any, so how can they be taking it? And what really gets my goat, Madam Mayor, is when people in this country who either themselves or their families are migrants, then pull up the ladder, I'm all right, Jack. What's good enough for you is good enough for the rest. And finally, Madam Mayor, I was talking to a young person very recently about proverbs. They were very impressed. You know, we must repeat them because they're dying out. But the latest one was this, and I'll finish here. You can't argue with stupid. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. I do hope you weren't looking at me when you said that. Councillor Speed, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do recognise the concern that lies behind this motion. Housing pressure, rising temporary accommodation costs and strains on local services are real issues for councils across the country, and it's entirely legitimate to debate what's driving them. There are evidence-based examples elsewhere in the UK where migration-related pressures, particularly when they're sudden or poorly funded, have had a tangible impact on housing availability and community cohesion. For example, in coastal Kent, authorities such as Dover and Folkestone and Hythe, Home Office hotel use has reduced access to temporary accommodation for local homeless families, increasing costs and displacement. The LGA has repeatedly warned this diverts limited housing stock away from local residents who've lived and worked in those communities all their lives. In Birmingham and parts of Greater Manchester, rapid asylum dispersal has been linked to higher HMO concentrations and pressure on environmental health and neighbourhood services. These are not issues of identity, they're issues of capacity, funding, planning and local consent. So I absolutely accept that where this happens, councils are right to make representations to government. My concern with this motion is that it asserted a specific problem in Swale without presenting any evidence that Swale is experiencing pressures beyond those faced elsewhere. There were no figures on asylum placements, no breakdown of temporary accommodation use, no comparison with neighbouring districts, no evidence of a causal link between migration and the housing pressures we all know exist. That's why our group and others, I believe, asked officers to provide data. We now have the briefing note from the CEO. The headline point out of that is that data doesn't show Swale's experience to be exceptional. Housing register lets, homelessness applications and temporary accommodation usage involving non-UK nationals appear broadly proportionate to our population profile, and officers conclude that overall impacts are in line with general population pressures. We cannot formally recognise, as the motion suggests, a problem or escalate it to the Prime Minister unless we can demonstrate that it exists in a materially different or more acute way in Swale. This is not about denying national challenges, it's about evidence-based decision-making. If we want public confidence in our housing and service systems, our conclusions must follow the facts, not precede them. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Speed. Councillor Ben Martin, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I won't rehash what I said in the amendment. I think that made the point when it comes to the information and data not supporting the motion. As Councillor Perkins said, this is just a dog whistle, but I will address some comments that have been made by other councillors. Just because you change the residency criteria for who can qualify for social housing and affordable rent housing does not change the need for it. Just because someone's lived here for 4 years or 2 years, making them wait the other 2 just means you're delaying when they're going to add to the register. It doesn't change the fundamental need. That is the first point that I'll make in response to Councillor Hunt, and I hope you'll accept that. I do think that if we were to pass this motion, we'd be lying to ourselves first and foremost, we'd be lying to the public, and we'd be lying to Westminster when we write that damn letter. Because quite frankly, we do not have a problem caused by migration in this area, unless you want to take internal migration, and I'm probably one of very few that would still be in this chamber having been born in Swale. All of you, and Councillor Harrison, those of you, and a few others, but those of you, but those that would, but some may have been born in foreign places such as Canterbury or Medway. How dare they? So, or Yorkshire, yes, indeed. But actually, we're a United Kingdom. We welcome the fact that people come here to work. We welcome our colleagues. And as Councillor Baldock rightly said, we do have many members of staff who are migrants, whether it be from different parts of the United Kingdom, different parts of the Commonwealth, or different parts of the rest of the world. And their job is crucial to what we do. Without them, we can't do any of the things that we talked about in the leader's statement earlier. We need these people to help and support us, and we want them to feel appreciated. That's what we tried to do last month and failed. This time round, it looks like we want to persecute a group, and we've seen what happens when groups get persecuted. You start off with this sort of idea that it's their fault, it's them over there. They're the reason I can't do anything. Then the language changes somewhat and you start to dehumanise. It becomes those rats over there, those people, those pests that are coming in. Then you walk down the next set of the path and it's, well, let's just reduce what they're allowed to do. Then it's suddenly, let's make them wear a mark. Then suddenly it's, let's tattoo their arm and put them in a concentration camp, which I think alludes to the point that Councillor Bowen made earlier. We had Holocaust Memorial Day this week, just yesterday. This motion spits in the face of that. And quite frankly, I think every member in this chamber should be objecting, should be refusing this motion, and we should be moving on and doing what's right for the borough and going out there trying to secure more affordable housing, more social rent housing through the Affordable Homes Programme, through our partnerships with other agencies to try and tackle some of the issues and try and continue with the work that was already mentioned in the leader's statement in other aspects that help people back into work and help people to achieve better in this borough.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. I have got 8 more names down. I'm not going to take any more after that, after the 8th one. So the next one up is Councillor Miller, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I recognise the real pressures on housing and council service in Swale, but I cannot support this motion as drafted. It blames migration for these pressures without credible evidence. Whilst the briefing paper is impressively clear, it's clear why this argument and motion overall doesn't stand up. The original motion ignores decades of underdelivery, loss of social housing, rising rents and chronic underfunding, all the product of long-term political choices. Against that backdrop, Reform's enthusiasm for accountability is striking. Nothing says commitment to fixing migration issues like complaining about failures and then handing the architects of those failures a membership form. If this council writes to government, it should do so with honesty and concerns that are backed up with evidence and facts. I also would like to just say, we have members of this chamber who have had to put up with some of the most disgusting abuse. I want to just remind us all, we are elected officials. What we say has consequences far more important than fishing for social media likes or rounds of applause. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Miller. Councillor Worcester, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I knew I was going to be very emotional about this, so I've written it down, which hopefully will take some of that out of it. I was very surprised to see this motion coming forward with very little data attached, and I was pleased to see the data from Swale so that context could be added, especially from an experienced position. This council has some lobbying power and it needs to be used to highlight issues based on the reality of the situation rather than just hearsay, because there is a fair amount of mixed messaging around the subject of immigration issues, which of course is decreasing nationally. I will not be supporting this motion this evening because the motion is worded to draw particularly negative attention to a national issue that as members we can see is only reflected in a small amount of the population, which is often lost and miscommunicated in everyday conversation for our residents. I also must ask myself, will this be like other motions nationally that have been rolled out apparently across the councils to serve a perceived national political interest rather than a local interest? Will they too be data light? Or just for the benefit, will they serve a perceived national interest rather than local interest? I imagine so. Just for the benefit of the room, I do believe in a strong immigration system, but I am sad because, as many other people in this borough, I'm directly descended from Londoners, and I'm damn proud of my heritage, as I expect others to be too. Why was it all right to benefit from them moving here and not others? Londoners Londoners have been sniffed at consistently, actually, and I hear it in many conversations. But they provide a high proportion of our coastal community tourism. And actually, we welcome them. Focus on process problems, not individuals, whatever their heritage. Instead, I hope this conversation will continue in future around how this small amount of the population and others are supported within this council's remit to make a positive contribution going forward in Swale, including lobbying to bring funding like the Sheerness Revival Project, like the incoming money for the eastern end of the Isle of Sheppey from successive governments working with Swale to provide facilities and resources that benefit the whole population in the end. I'll also add that I believe that the responsibility of any government and this council's responsibility to support our residents and push for the support around large and important issues is overshadowed by this sort of meaningless motion. Like, for instance, children in education, not in education or training, health support for everyone, and revitalising the economy at a local level to support coastal areas and seasonal communities and high streets. As just this week, we've seen a further 2 shops leave Sheerness High Street. Let's have more motions to support positive work for everyone that cross parties can support and get behind, because we're all here for the same reason. Thank you.
Councillor Whiting, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I wasn't going to speak. A couple of things I want to say. This is a political motion. It is come out of a press release. I'm sure it has, but that's not just Reform do that. With all political parties, they did the Tories when I was a Tory. The Labour Party have done it when they were in opposition. Come up with a national, every time. So it happens. So we have to accept that happens. We can't blame Reform for doing what they're doing in that respect. What I dislike about this type of motion, and we see them increasingly now, is this whole spiel that should form part of a reasoned argument as to why we should accept the resolution at the end. This council resolves to should be the motion. What we get is the arguments in favour of it. As you say, not backed up by much evidence. And we see that more and more and more. Motions become 4 pages long. They become speeches in their own right. And I object to that. I don't know how we stop doing that, but it's become more and more prevalent. Because actually, if you look at what's resolved here in Councillor Palmer's original motion, and then you look at the amendments to those resolutions, they're not that much different. The main differences are all in the spiel that goes before. This council notes, this council believes. Well, I believe certain things. You may believe something different. What the council believes is what it resolves to do at the end. And actually, there's not that much difference in it. So, from my point of view, we should stop seeing motions like this. We should start seeing resolutions. And when a motion comes forward like this, that hasn't got the evidence to back up what the proposers are resolving to do, then we should use the Constitution and refer it to committee.
Sorry, Councillor Whiting, you keep hitting the microphone with the paper.
I'm sorry.
I know you're very animated.
I am. But we should just refer it to the Communities Committee, refer it to the Housing Committee, ask the officers to prepare a report of all the particular stats and everything else that we need. They can then take a decision, because the best letters that leaders from this council write to leaders of this country are the ones that come out of motions following a debate about a specific issue, be that here or at committee, but generally at committee. And somebody, the committee will say, get the committee chairman to write to the Prime Minister, get the committee chairman to write to the Housing Minister. And that is a better way of doing business, in my view. So unfortunately, I have an enormous amount of sympathy with a lot of what's said here. I don't believe that it's got the evidence to back it up. I'm sorry, Councillor Palmer. And I don't believe it's the right way to bring a motion to this council. I would have, if I'd have wanted to do, I was fed up with standing, I was fed up with points of order, Madam Mayor, and if I'd have bothered to, I would have stood up on the point of order and said, can't we just refer this to Communities Committee and be done with it without further debate? Because I think that would be the best way. And then officers... so I'll leave it there, but that's thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Whiting. Councillor MacDonald, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was going to ask about the time limit that people have to actually be offered property, and my understanding is that it's 2 years. So they have to be resident in Swale for 2 years before they get up to the top of the list for a property. I'm obviously very interested in ex-service people, who are here who are homeless. But anyway, the only thing I would say is that I find it a little bit offensive that somebody was commented, sadly one of our members commented about somebody's surname. I'm a MacDonald, although my family came to Sheppey in 1905 to run Sheppey General Hospital. So that frankly is pretty out of order. As you know, if you look in my declaration of interests, I am a private landlord, and I keep very high standards, which I think is essential. I've got two families who are Bulgarian, who've been here over 10 years. They work very hard. Both families, actually they work for Morrison's, but they've now got British citizenship. So there is a place for people, but I think the main problem is people coming who I would claim, well, people say are illegals. Well, they are illegal, frankly. I'm sorry, but they are. Legally, you're not allowed to break into a country. So that's the legal situation. So I think that's part of the problem. But anyway, as I say, I maintain very high standards. I don't charge anything like the going rate for the tenants. I get an income, obviously, which is extra to my pension, which I decided many years ago. But so I've got two Bulgarian families, as I say, who are extremely good. And first of the month, they're there to pay the rent, which I do declare. So there are good families, but there's also...
Sorry, Councillor MacDonald, can we not be having different little conversations going on while Councillor MacDonald is speaking, please? Let's have a bit of respect in the chamber. Thank you, Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you very much. I was just going to finish up, actually, because I did want to emphasise about the 2 years for the, getting a property. There aren't enough properties to go around, that's obvious. And there isn't sufficient finance in the pot to actually house them. It's no good me buying more property because of my age. But anyway, there we go. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Booth, please.
Madam Mayor, can I just move we go to the vote, please?
No.
I haven't had the second the motion.
You called me first, madam.
And I called Councillor Booth. I will call Councillor Booth. As long as the other people are happy with it, I will then go to Councillor Mischuk. If you want me to go to the vote quick. Councillor Booth.
Is the clock running already, Chairman?
Sorry?
Yeah, good.
Councillor Booth, come on.
Yeah, there's a lot that I agree with that's already been said. I do accept the thought processes, and I do accept some of the commentary that's been made. Can this be dealt with by another committee? Yeah, I believe it can. I believe it should have been. Then I had a thought. When we start talking about housing availability, private sector housing regulations, etc., I think to the innocent bystander, could there be a possibility that anybody on the planning committee could be predetermined? But then I thought, no, there isn't, because the planning committee, nor any other committee of this council, can determine who's going to live in those houses or who's going to be a tenant. Where do we go? I think writing a letter to the Prime Minister, yeah, pointless. It's a pointless exercise. A lot of the information that is considered in this document is nothing at all in our control. Nothing at all. I think some of the dialogue relating and regarding to other areas of this country is a pointless and futile exercise. We are only here to talk about Swale. That's all we're interested in. And my only claim to fame about an illegal immigrant is my son once had a Syrian hamster. With that, Madam Mayor, I voted against the first vote, and I will be concurrent, and I shall vote against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Booth. So my apologies to Councillors Thompson, Pollard and Braun. I'm afraid I'm not going to call you. I'm going to go straight to Councillor Mistruck, please. You seconded the motion, reserved your right. If you'd like to speak now, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This motion is not just about the current state of the borough. It is about tomorrow. It is about the impact of migration could have and undoubtedly will have in latter years. We are the children of this nation, and I feel that the nation has a parental obligation to us, that we should be put first. The government should be responsible for its current population. And I mean, like many people across this borough, we hear about statistics and facts, but most of us would much rather be more convinced by what we see and hear. This motion isn't proposing anything personal. This isn't about deportations. It's calling for recognition that our border isn't secure, and any more people that could come into this country could and undoubtedly will have an impact on the borough later on down the line. And I'd just like to say, how do you all want to be remembered when our country is potentially in the gutter? And Madam Mayor, could we have a recorded vote?
Yeah.
I need more than one person for a recorded vote, Councillor Mistruck. I need 5 of you. So have I got 5 people that want to have recorded? And if you do, can you stand, please? Can you stand, please? Thank you. All right, we will get a recorded vote when we get to it.
Madam Mayor, if I may, at this point, I'll come to it's a kind of point of order on a legal status on this one.
Yeah.
I think under the European Commission on Human Rights, Article 3, that offers protection from inhumane or degrading treatment, and Article 8 about having members have a private life, and also the Health and Safety at Work Act that has members who are not exposed to foreseeable risk. After the last full council meeting, where members in this chamber were targeted, named on social media, that this, as a result of a recorded vote, that the recorded vote should not occur this evening. It should be a point of just hands.
Right, councillors, I will offer this one over to the monitoring officer. Thank you, Robin.
Sorry, Robin.
Well, my point of order is there was a request under the Constitution for a recorded vote. And we were told 5 people have to vote for it. You've had 5 people. That now should move to a recorded vote. Or do we just cancel any vote at the whim of whatever? Thank you.
Another point of order, Madam Mayor. Your word is final, regardless of the Constitution.
Oh, I'm glad someone's remembered. Councillors, I'm just going to ask the monitoring officer to give his advice, please.
So the Constitution says if 5 members at full council demand it, there will be a recorded vote. And so obviously that is explicit. There are other rules in relation to that. For example, an individual member who wishes to note how their vote was cast is able to have that recorded post a vote being taken, and the Constitution is clear that that rule cannot be suspended. And so whilst it is in explicit language, and again I would suggest that if members are unhappy with that language that they ought to look to change it, it does suggest that as there are rules that cannot be suspended, then the rule on a recorded vote could be suspended on the basis that the room votes for it. So the council could vote to suspend the rule in the way that it votes to suspend standing orders, for example, in relation when it continues after 10 o'clock. And so it was put that the vote not be recorded contrary to the constitutional rule, and so that could potentially be seconded and voted on, and then obviously the mayor would have the view of the council before making her final decision.
Members, would someone like to propose that then, please?
I will propose that we suspend stand orders on this item.
I'll second it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Can we go to the vote on the proposal that Councillor Bowen has put forward, please? All those in favour? Those against, please. Any abstentions, councillors? Then the proposal to suspend that rule tonight is given. Thank you. So we will not be having a recorded vote on this motion. Thank you. Councillor Palmer, as the proposer of the motion, do you wish to sum up the debate, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think if you look at the actual first the recommendation A, it says it's having a contribution to the pressure. At no time did that actually say everything is down to legal or illegal. And in my speech, I actually said where there is a positive contribution. But I also stated that it's about the numbers, it's about the scale, it's about the consequences, it's about the lack of control. And I must be right, because Keir Starmer wants to smash the gangs because of so many coming in, but he's failed at that. The previous government was stop the boats. It is, as Councillor Bishop said, we are heading towards a no turning point. The public will not support what we've done. The vast majority of the public, and I accept there are genuine people who need to come here, whether they were from the Ukraine, whether they were from other places around the world. But there are a vast number of economic migrants who are coming here and do not have our values and do not follow what we feel. I do feel that one of the things was very interesting with the Cobra Training Centre, the Cobra Camp. A camp I first went to in about 1974. Lovely place. But the Green Party deputy leader, Rachel Millard, was saying how wonderful we're going to get all these people coming in by the boats. They're doctors and engineers. And with 2 or 3 days of the announcement of 600 people moving into Crowborough Camp.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. 3.1.16.8. This is supposed to be a summing up, not introducing new information.
I'm summing up to show the hypocrisy
Councillor
that sometimes exists. The change, the summing up is basically the Constitution tonight has been ignored. It's been run roughshod over. You should be ashamed of yourselves. And that's my summing up. I've had colleagues in this room called names this evening. You all sit there and say, let's have nice, friendly debates, but you can call people fascists and Nazis.
Councillors, thank you.
You can use language that you feel. You can interrupt and tutter, throw your arms about. You want the nice debates, listen to the arguments and listen to what was said. Nothing was said about, by me or others, about how the effects on the total, it's down to the numbers, the scale.
Time, Councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. And I would just like to point out that I allowed 12 people to speak on this motion tonight. Please do not accuse me of not giving you enough debate. Thank you. Okay, members, we're now going to go to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand clearly.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Booth.
A point of procedure. This meeting is being videoed and will be recorded. So people's anonymity, which I guess is what people are after, will not be guaranteed. Could I suggest a paper vote?
Point of order under the Localism Act 2011. Public meetings should be recorded. Thank you.
I don't think we could do that.
No, let's just go to... Councillors, we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand clearly. All those in favour, please.
In favour. In favour. Yeah. Can I request that I have my vote recorded, please?
Yeah, likewise.
Is that the whole of your group? Okay, thank you. All those not in favour, please raise your hand clearly.
Everybody else.
Thank you. Are there any abstentions? The motion is lost. Councillors, thank you. Councillors, I was due to have a break for adjournment as you were not allowed to go and use the toilet while we had the brief adjournment. Do you want the 10-minute break or would you like us to play? Okay. Councillors, we now adjourn for 10 minutes. Please be back by 9:35. And the police can go as well because you've behaved. Please be seated, councillors. If you feel the urge, please remove your jackets if it's getting a bit warm in here. Oh, is it cooling off now? That's good. And the gentleman in the public gallery, please take a seat.
Yeah.
Please do, take a seat. I'm not that mean. Right. Councillors, blimey, look at the time. Agenda item 10, Climate and Ecological Emergency Annual Progress Report. I invite the Chair of the Environment and Climate Change Committee, Councillor Worcester, to speak and propose the recommendations. Councillor Worcester.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I think it's quite evident from what was before us. It was only passed at Environment Committee yesterday, and I would like to give my thanks to the members of the Environment Committee. That too was a interesting meeting. I think it's self-evident from what's before you, and hopefully all members will see very positive work going on around their areas of the borough based on the work that our very diligent officers do on this every time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Worcester. I invite the Vice Chair of Environment Climate Change Committee, Councillor Jays, to second the recommendation and ask whether they wish to speak now or reserve their right.
This is news to me, but I will second and reserve my right. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jays. How much we've missed you. I invite Councillor Bowen to speak, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wasn't going to actually say anything, but I can't resist myself on this occasion. By the departure of certain parties in here shows how much little rate they have in terms of the environment and the Constitution when it comes to it later, given the comments earlier in the meeting. But good report. Move on. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. I invite Councillor Baldock to speak, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't want to pass this over too quickly without recognising some of the benefits that are coming through from this. You know, like LED lighting, solar panels on roofs, something we've been trying to get for ages, but our Green colleagues first put forward. And we're saving money and improving lives. I think this is a really good piece of work. I, too, am disappointed that some people have left, because I was wondering how the climate sceptics were going to respond to this, given that several of them had actually voted for it when it came forward in the first place, but we'll miss that one.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. Councillor Perkin, please.
Thank you, Chair. So climate action done properly is social action. This report is about climate and ecological emergency and the work the council does, but it's also about people, warm homes that cost less to heat, which means fewer families choosing between heating and eating. It's about cleaner air, so children with asthma aren't struggling to breathe on their way to school. It's about safer streets, greener neighbourhoods and communities that feel looked after rather than left behind. And that matters because the truth is climate change doesn't hit everyone equally. It hits hardest those who are already under pressure, people on low incomes, older residents, young families, and those with existing health conditions. Doing nothing isn't neutral. It locks in that inequality in Swale. When we invest in energy efficiency, we reduce fuel poverty. When we support active travel and public transport, we improve access to jobs, services and education, and we protect green spaces, we improve mental health, wellbeing and community pride. The report doesn't pretend everything is easy to solve. It recognises the financial pressure councils are under and the scale of the challenge ahead, but it also says something important, that waiting costs more financially, socially and morally, because the cost of inaction shows up somewhere else. It shows up in the NHS, it shows up in our emergency services, it shows up in housing repairs and communities struggling to cope. The report recognises the day-to-day realities of residents, that climate action isn't being done to communities but with them for healthier, safer, more resilient lives. So yes, it's a climate report, but it's also a health report. It's also a cost of living report and a community wellbeing report, and I think it's an excellent report, and I thank the officers and the committee for bringing it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkin. Oh, can't invite Councillor Palmer to speak. I invite I could, but he's not here. I invite Councillor Gould to speak, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too very much welcome this report and echo everything that Councillor Perkin has just said. There's really not a lot to add. I would particularly welcome the fact that we're actually going to be getting the solar panels on this building in due course, which is just shows how investment actually saves. And I think that's true all the way through climate action, that actually, if you can put the action and the money in, it actually pays down the line. It doesn't cost money. We can afford net zero. We can't not afford net zero. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gould. I now open the debate for members. First off the block, Councillor Harrison, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've been green, if you want to call it that, for many moons, since before I was on the council. And one of my main areas of concern has been recycling. Before it was fashionable, I will say this. I also believe in saving money. So having been reminded by Councillor Perkin of the Nolan principles, I'm going to be a bit more discreet than I was going to be. So I went in the members' room today. There used to be a green paper bin in there for just your general papers. There is no longer one in there. All that's in there is a blue confidential recycling bin. We pay somebody to come along and shred that confidential waste. That blue bin in the members' room is absolutely chocker, to the point that this was actually sticking out of it. It was so full, it wouldn't go in. I don't know in which person's book this is confidential waste that we should be paying to dispose of, but it's not in my book. Now, I do know who put it in. As I say, I'm going to be discreet, because they also put that in, which has got their name on the other side. Okay? We need to practice what we preach. We need to lead from the front. In the old days, I used to go round to visit the officers and check their bins. There was always recycling in it, which I made them take out. And even now, when I go on that second floor, as Martin will tell you, I've said, Martin, there's a drinks can in that general waste bin there. So, you know, it might, from little acorns, mighty oaks do grow. So I just thought I'd make that point and remind members. It isn't, you know, it isn't always about the massive things, about the solar panels on every building going. It's about the little things that how can we be telling our residents, no, you must recycle, if we're not doing it ourselves? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Hunt, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I think it is a good report. One of the reasons that we had it come to full council at this time as the annual report was because of funding, and if there was anything that we needed to look at to put into the budget. And one thing I did raise it last night, but should raise it now as a full council, that there's little in here about actually how much this has cost us. There's lots about obviously how well we're doing with the environment, which is good. But as members, we do need to know how much this is costing and what value we're getting. And it was said last night about taking this back, but if members are on the steering committee for this, for the working group, to have a look at, hopefully next year, maybe we could just have a bit more figures in this, so we can then look at, do we need to spend a bit more money? Are we getting good value for this? And whether we can then put into the budget if we need to. But apart from that, it is good and yeah, positive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Braun, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to mention that, as it was spoken about earlier tonight, Reg 18 consultation, one of the biggest impacts on ecological reports are planning policies. And our Reg 18 that we put out, the big chunk of those policies are stuff that will work to reduce environmental impact. I'd be happy and delighted to note this report.
Thank you, Councillor Braun. Councillor Booth, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, it's a good start, I would say. It's a good start. Undoubtedly, the national net zero target of 2050 is going to move again. I don't think we'd be foolish enough to say that's cast in stone. However, there's a number of things that I read in the report that I'd like to bring a challenge to, or ask that some form of support is given to. In particular, where it states the Healthy Living Centre is going to be completed with a BREEAM Very Good, and makes mention of building insulation and an air source heat pump. It doesn't make mention that a full-term fixed gas boiler has been installed, contrary to advice from building regulations. That's the first point. I would also like to understand further details with regards to the DESNZ report, which I'm familiar with, where it states in the document that Swale, the industrial sector of Swale, has reduced its output of CO2 by 50% over 20 years. I find that quite an astonishing figure that, in respect to the report, is not supported in evidence. So I'd like to, again, not for now, but for later, perhaps get information on that. And the last point, Madam Mayor, it's been touched on, is the fuel poverty. I would suggest to you all that the tens of thousands of families throughout this borough working hard, supporting families, putting their children through education and not claiming benefits, they receive little, if any, support, financial assistance and support for solar arrays, loft insulation, cavity wall insulation, and even heat pump technology. They are clamouring for holidays. They don't get the choice. They don't get a holiday because they can't afford it. That is real term fuel poverty, Madam Mayor. The majority of people in this chamber would not have seen a reduction in their fuel bill. I'm fairly confident in saying that, because we don't qualify for those. So I think this borough needs to actively look at how we can support those people in that sector that are working their butts off. They're spending £100 a year and they're actually earning £101 a year in relation. So I think that that's something that needs to be looked at moving forward. As I said at the start, Madam Mayor, the report is a good start, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Booth. Councillor Wise, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I enjoyed my time when I was previously a member on the Environment Committee because of the cross-party work that goes into monitoring reports like this and the various actions that it documents. And when I was on the committee, recycling was a big issue of mine, perhaps not to the same extent as Councillor Harrison's, but it was a huge priority of mine. And I think that's been underscored by the information we had as members recently about those areas in the borough where contamination of recycling waste is most prominent. And linking to Councillor Hunt's point, that is something that costs the council. It costs all of us actually in time and effort as well. And at the next Sitting One Area Committee, this is something that we'll be looking into in more detail. We've got officers from the council coming along to help do a workshop around these issues and to sort of understand from residents themselves and from members what more we can be doing on that. So hopefully that's a big success, and that is something that perhaps other area committees might want to pick up as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wise. I think we might need to suspend standing orders as it's 10 to 10. Agreed. Thank you, members. Councillor Ben J. Martin, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My apologies for the late return to the chamber. Unfortunately, Kent Police wish to speak to me about a post that has been placed online following the previous agenda item. I would just like to say I welcome the report. Councillor Booth does hit on a little element of relevance when it comes to affordability and the those that are in fuel poverty. What we have to bear in mind is that in England, fuel poverty is defined differently to how it is in Wales and Scotland. In England, your fuel poverty is defined by the fact that your EPC rating for your property is band D or below. Everywhere else, it's based on the percentage of your income that you are spending on fuel. So you do straight away, if you happen to have a home that's slightly more energy efficient, you happened to change all those LEDs back in the change all your light bulbs to LEDs back in the day, just in time to get that 1 point over from D into C, you can't possibly be in fuel poverty. The statistics say you can't be. It's a nonsense, and it does need to change. But there is things that people can do. You can do the shop around, and actually there is huge variation in price paid. When it comes to upgrading insulation and upgrading heating systems, we have waited with bated breath for the Warms Home Plan, which was released finally last week, which does open the route to those families that are just about managing, and I hate that phrase, but it's probably the best way to describe them, the jams. It does open the route to them for going over to more energy efficient heating solutions such as air source heat pumps. The key thing when you're looking at that sort of technological change as well, dare I say it's somewhere that we'll probably have to look ourselves in committee, is the other changes that you make alongside it. Because the biggest saving you can make if you move to air source heat pump is when you then remove your gas meter and stop paying your standing charge. So you're probably going to need to change your cooker as well to an induction hob and an oven as well. That's where you would get the maximum saving, and it's a difference of about £200 extra saved per year by making that change and having your gas meter removed too. But by and large, this particular paper, as Councillor Perkin rightly pointed out, it is not just an environment and climate change paper, it is a health paper. I'd argue it's also a housing paper, because anybody that cannot afford to heat their home does not have an affordable home. We have to make sure that people can afford to live in their home, maintain their home, heat their home, and make sure that they can look after themselves, and that is affordable housing. So I really do welcome what we've got so far. Much further to go, but we are making those steps, and we made that first step back when we adopted the climate emergency and ecological emergency in this council. We were ambitious. We continue to be ambitious.
Time, Councillor.
And hopefully we will always be ambitious.
Thank you. Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll go back onto the recycling, waste recycling area of the report. Where I previously lived, I was used to obviously separating out food waste from recycling, from the green bin waste, etc. When I moved to my new address, whilst I knew about the situation, I was quite shocked that when you move into a block of flats, you aren't serviced by food recycling bins at the present time. Now, I did contact one of our officers and asked if I could have a food waste bin, as I was, obviously used to, separating out food waste, which I now have to dispose of in general waste, because there is no provision until later on this year, when I believe there is going to be a rollout of food waste bins to blocks and HMOs and so on and so forth. I believe this should be done as soon as possible, but when it is done, I think that we really do need to, because it will be a new thing for most of these people, we do need to educate them properly in the use of the food waste bins, rather than just chucking it out in general waste. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Jayes, you reserved your right. Would you like to speak now, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, Councillor Clark, this should change by April of this year. We've had lots of members point out some of the many benefits in this report. Solar panels on this building will save 50% of our electricity bill. That's public money we're saving. Active travel encourages exercise, walking and cycling. Recycling and refurbishing bikes and providing the community also encourages active travel. We're providing trees, or more importantly, oxygen. We're lowering air pollution, and this is helping people breathe better. LED lighting here is reducing the council's costs, saving public money. We're bringing communities together with community events. I want to thank the team of officers that produced this report and for all the successes we're having.
Thank you, Councillor Jays. I invite Councillor Worcester to respond to members' comments if she wishes.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I think people have made some really relevant comments, and it's unusual that I find myself agreeing with Councillor Booth in that I absolutely agree that one of the areas that we could all do better at every level of local authority is pulling documentation, for example, like the National Planning Framework, into line and making sure that, like we are doing, seeing all of our work through the climate emergency is absolutely imperative. I would, however, like to add that there is a steering group that operates to add comments and changes and things to the work. Each party has a member that can come along to that steering group, and it is very well attended by officers. Very well attended by officers. So that is the place to share your considerations with your member of the working group and get them to come along. So I'm looking forward to full attendance from now on, so that all parties can be absolutely well represented when the work can actually be done. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Worcester. We will now go to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand clearly. Unanimous. Thank you very much, members. That is unanimous. Item 11, Constitution Amendment. I invite the Chair of the Constitution Working Group, Councillor Bowen, to speak and propose the recommendations. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not going to take too long on this. There are a number. So the recommendation here is to consider the amendments at Appendix 1 to determine which of the amendments to approve for incorporation into the Constitution. There are a few amendments, one which basically tidies up areas, in my view, and quite frankly, I think it's been said before, are no-brainers. The first one, and I would suggest, Madam Mayor, with your permission, if you wish to do it this way, on each of the various items in the appendix on the changes. So we've got the member protocol for pre-application, pre-decision development, developer engagement. We have one change to the budget amendment deadline, which will help, which has disappeared. Lisa and her team, in advance of the budget, to actually be able to cast a full, and I'm not saying this for a second she wouldn't, but a full and absolutely thorough eye over any amendments without having to chase her tail 2 or 3 days before the annual budget meeting of the council. At least that gives us some breathing space. Maybe even also to have to work over the weekend, which is not something which we should be expecting. But so that, I think, is a good change. Then we have the one about the change to the area committees. And then the final one, the use of the electronic council seal. And when we spoke about this at the working group and P&R, it's a council moving into finally also progressing into the 21st century. It's nice to have the historical wax bumping that goes. That's not being got rid of. That will still exist for certain documents. That's absolutely fine. But more and more, we are seeing the need for electronic seals on documents, and this just makes life so much easier. So I move the recommendation and hope it will get passed on each of the the proposals. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. I invite the Deputy Leader to second the recommendations and ask whether he wishes to speak now or reserve his right.
I second the recommendation. Thank you.
Are you reserving your right, Councillor Wise? No. Okay, thank you very much. Thought I'd ask. I invite Councillor Baldock to speak, please.
I think you might regret that, Councillor Wise. No, I have serious reservations about the... to have only 3 minutes is a bit limited, but I have major reservations about the protocol because there's nothing in here about giving other organisations like parish councils, town councils the right, residents groups the right to address councillors. This is going to be seen as us canoodling with developers being allowed to effectively lobby us, and it'll be one-sided. So I have huge reservations about this. I think it needs a lot more thought. This is a really slippery slope, and we will rightly be criticised from outside. So I'm not happy about that. I'm also really concerned about Appendix Item C. The name of the area committees should be changed to Councillors and Residents Forum. I think that is pointless. Forums are completely different to committees. We don't have forums in our constitution, we have committees. We have we used to have local engagement forums. They are different to area committees. There was this confusion between the two right at the start, and they were never meant to be engagement forums. They were supposed to be area committees where we look at future policy and consider how it will impact on our areas. We don't do that. That's what we should be doing. And I think this changing of it is totally wrong. And the public agree with us. You know, we ask the public, and what do they think? 66% of them think the area committee is a good description. So why are we changing it? It's there in the bump at the back on page 76. So why are we changing this and confusing the issue? I really don't think this is a good idea. Number two, there should be members of a public and parish town councils. We already do that in the Western. We take indicative votes. We see how people feel. So I'm not sure you can't do that already, as we do. I just really would ask that we remove the changing of the name to area committees. I think it will be confusing. I think people will have totally the wrong idea about Councillors and Residents Forum. Yeah.
Councillor Baldock, is that an amendment you're putting forward?
Yeah, well, I'm not agreeing that bit, so yeah, I suppose it's an amendment.
Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Surprise, Councillor Jays. Can we discuss the amendment then, please? Anyone want to discuss the amendment of not changing the area committee's name? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Only to say that the time to do that would have been at Policy and Resources or the various number of working groups that it's already gone through. By the time it's got here, we've discussed it, I think, 4 or 5 times. So had there been a problem back then, maybe, but it's a bit late now.
Well, we're a democracy. We've had the amendment put before us. We'll go to the vote. Yep. Sorry, Councillor Baldock. Off you go.
Yeah, but it comes to full council, and full council is the governing body. And I don't see in here the reason for it. There's a reason given, but it's not backed up by the evidence of the consultation. Why are we ignoring people's, we do a consultation, 66% think it's the best name, and we think, well, we don't, so we'll ignore them. So let's just stick with it as it is. We're going to have to rewrite a whole chunk of a constitution now to say what forums are. We should have to come back, and we'll have to discuss that and agree what a forum is. I mean, can a forum take a decision? Well, we don't know the answer to that. So we might actually be taking decision-making powers away from the committees. This is just an unwise move. So I just think we shouldn't do it.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. We'll go to the vote on the amendment to recommendation.
Sorry, point of clarification, if I may, Madam Mayor. Can I ask the monitoring officer or chief executive on that question? Would that require a big change to the constitution, or actually can it be just an almost added?
Yeah.
Thank you.
If it's just a change of name and the fundamental thing of the area committee is not changing, the monitoring officer has a delegation to change that in the constitution, so it doesn't need to go anywhere. If the view of the working group was it fundamentally changed what the group body does, then that will need a bit more work. But from my recollection, and please members of the working group correct me if I'm wrong, it was about what, rather than the changing of what the meeting did, it was about how it's portrayed outside. So it was a change of name, which the monitoring officer does have the delegation to change if that is the will of council.
Go to the vote then. You still want the amendment to go forward?
Madam Mayor, can I get a point of clarification?
Yes,
Because some of
certainly.
this relates to agenda item 12 as well. So what happens, because I have the unfortunate privilege of putting forward agenda item 12, where some of these are recommendations from that review. So maybe agenda 12 should have been ahead of this item, but I just want to know what happens.
Right, what's Thank you.
As I've understood the amendment, it is just objecting to the change of name from area committee to resident and council resident forum, and so as that's literally just the name of the committee and nothing more, then whilst that was one of the changes, it doesn't impact on any of the other changes that were made. So,
Councillor Thompson, I know how you feel. That's all right. We'll go to a vote on the amendment to not change the name from area committee to forum. All those in favour of the amendment, please show. Eight. All those against?
13, 14.
Abstentions, I think.
Any abstentions?
4.
Okay, so the amendment is lost. Sorry, Councillor Baldock. Councillor Baldock?
How are we going to do the vote? Because I also want to vote against the protocol.
What I was going to suggest we do is we take each of the proposals individually. Is that okay? Lovely. Councillor Perkin, I invite you to speak on this, should you so wish.
I'm fine, thanks.
Excellent. Councillor Gould?
No, nothing to say.
Open the debate up to members. Does anyone want to talk about it? Don't all do it at once. Okay, no. Councillor Bowen, would you like to wish a sum up?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Martin pretty much said what I was going to say, that this work has gone through Constitutional Work Group, which Councillor Baldock is a member of. It went through PNR, which I think Councillor Baldock is a member of. It's now come to full council, which Councillor Baldock is obviously a member of. How many more chances do people want before they can put amendment or changes in? And that's not just at Councillor Baldock, but actually for everyone. We can't keep doing this if we're going to spend our time efficiently. Keep going round and round in circles. Yes, we have the democratic right, but it keeps going through the various agreed processes of this council. Let's stick to that and make better use of our time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Bowen. So as I said, I want to take the items individually. I'm not going to go through what the items are because I think we've all read the papers. So item
Can I have a
A.
recorded vote on one, please?
Well,
Not
no
gonna
one
stand up
else
for
has
that, have I?
stood. No one else has stood up.
Protocol,
Councillor
protocol.
Bulldog. Oh, that's two. No.
Well, I stood up for your blooming ones whenever you want one, even if I don't agree with
Sorry,
it. I'll stand
Councillor
up.
Worcester.
Madam Mayor, I know it's annoying. I know it's annoying, and we're all here very late. But I do think for the benefit of the public who haven't got the paperwork potentially in front of them, and for the recorded meeting, that if we are voting on something, that we shouldn't just. They need to be read out. They need to, for information, they need to be. Apologies. Thank you. I'm happy to be tutted against.
Right. So what do you want me to read out?
The protocol for the application advice. Yeah, so check.
Yeah. So we didn't get 3 months.
If
So
there's nobody else standing, then I will
No.
ask for my vote to be recorded in the minutes.
Appendix 1, Item A, which is the member protocol for pre-application and pre-decision development engagement. All those for, please show your hands. Thank you.
20.
All those against?
1, 2, 2.
Item A is carried.
Can I
Oh,
have my name
abstention,
recorded?
sorry, I do apologise. I'm getting ahead of myself. And Councillor Baldock, did you want your vote recorded?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Proposed change, Appendix 1, Item B, which is budget amendments. All those show that we're in favour, please. Thank you.
We are unanimous.
Unanimous, thank you. Lisa, I can see Lisa's a happy lady. Appendix Item 1, Item C, name change and other items to do with area committees. All those in favour, please show. All those against? Any abstentions?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That one is carried. And Appendix 1, Item D, which is the use of the electronic council seal, which I presume is the thing you do it, not an animal. All those in favour, please show. I had to do a funny, I'm sorry. Councillor Jace. Unanimous. Thank you. So item D is carried. So thank you, members. Agenda item 12. I invite the Deputy Leader to speak and propose the recommendations on area committee review. Councillor Wise.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'm here to most enthusiastically talk about the name change that's proposed amongst these recommendations. I'm sure all members will really welcome. But there are actually 14 recommendations that area committee chairs, through several meetings, did consider the survey responses, which wasn't just for the public, because as you pointed out, Councillor Baldock, obviously we have members attend those area committees as well, and we wanted feedback from members about their role and how they believe as well that we can enhance attendance, engagement and efforts that we get going through area committees. And in that one, there was a slightly contrary view that actually people didn't feel like the name said to people what it actually did, and there might be some feeling that the members of the public that did respond are those that typically already attend area committees, and therefore we should be looking beyond that slightly to see what more we can do to get people to engage with these. And so that's where the rest of the recommendations come in, which I think members gave quite a lot of discussion about. We gave a lot of consideration about the ways that we really hope that we can get members of the public to engage in policy that's going through the council, and to be able to have their voice come through in the work that those bodies are doing as well. And I think that's what we're really trying to strengthen, along with some of the practical steps where these are hybrid meetings. We want to make sure that it really is a well-used option for people if they wish to attend online and to fully participate in it, that they're able to do that. So I am aware of the decision from the Western Area Committee on the 27th of November, which makes up recommendation 1. Very happy to put that forward to as the 2 recommendations for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wise. I invite Councillor Ben Martin to second the recommendation. Ask whether he wishes to speak now or reserve his right.
Second, and I'll reserve.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I wish we could have also more acronyms of OCMUGA that we have on this one. I think it's fabulous. On a serious note, though, there was one question which I don't think we actually particularly answered, and that was actually going right back to the drawing board of, do we want area committees? I don't know the answer to that, because I don't think it was actually clear or asked. And I'll make no, I don't hide behind it. I've said before and I'll say it again, I don't think they're working. Name changes, procedural changes, if it's a dead dog, it's a dead dog. That's the second time I mentioned dogs today. I think there should be more of a fundamental actual review in terms of, do we really need these? Are they serving the purpose? Because I think at the moment, quite frankly, is no, they're not. But thank you for those who took part in the review. Members decide.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Councillor Baldock, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Right, there's 14 points here, and I've got comments on some of them. Amazingly, I don't agree with the first point. Well, I'm going to give that another go. But I really think the 4 areas are areas because they're different. All these area committees, as we currently call them, operate differently. So stop trying to make one rule fits all and try and make everything the same. You know, you've got an idea that, and let's have a look at some of these. December rounds of meetings generally poorly attended. Public. Didn't agree with that. Keep them at 4. So we'll ignore them again. But in the Western Area Committee, the December meetings have a purpose. In fact, we should, if we're going to properly use area committees to look at future policy in Swale, we should be doing them 4 times a year. It's the fact that we don't get the policies at the area committee to actually discuss them in time. We want to be able to, in the Western area, say, okay, that's a great policy. How's it going to work in our area? We want to we want to be able to feed in the concerns of the parishes and the residents and give an area response to it. That's what we should be doing. And you don't want to reduce, in that situation, the number of meetings. Number 4, Councillor Wise has already referred to the fact that the Western Area Committee doesn't want to meet outside of its area. We're quite happy meeting in different places around our patch. Number 5, the venues for Easton and Sheppey meeting should not move about as this caused confusion in the past. Right? Where possible, the venue should remain the same for each area committee. So is that each Easton and Sheppey or each of all 4? Because saying Easton and Sheppey shouldn't move about because it's caused confusion, why does that then apply to Sittingbourne or Weston? Let each committee make its own decisions because it knows what's best for that area. In the Western, we like to go to different areas because different villages can then come forward. We don't want to come down to Swale House. Equally, other areas might want to move about. You might have an interesting item that means that you want to meet in Laysdown. You might have one that means you want to meet in Queenborough. Why are we restricting in this way? The public forum item to be scheduled as early as possible on the agenda. Wouldn't it be more sense to have a half-an-hour session beforehand, and then people can come along, you can chat, and you say, oh, this is on the... And you can actually have a discussion with people without having to sit in your chairs. So let's look at this in a productive way and say, let's have the forum bit before the committee starts. And finally, chairs to meet before each round of meetings and review and forward plan. But it already happens. So I oppose those ones that I said I oppose. And if that means I need to make an amendment, I will. But I'd rather just vote against them.
Thank you for your consideration, Councillor Baldock. Councillor Perkin, please.
I'm fine, thanks.
Councillor Gould.
Likewise.
I now open this up to debate by members. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to make a comment about the Western Area Committee and moving around, because it all sounds great, but actually it doesn't work. There's been so many times that we've tried to, well, officers have tried to get different venues and they're not available. And whenever I've been, which I try not to some of the time, you seem to all be going out to Bredgar. I wouldn't even say it's in the Western area. If you've got places like Upchurch, Hartley, it's absolutely miles away. If we're actually going to do this, start going out to places. Go to Highway, go to the Meads, go to Upchurch, go to Lower Housetown, because we've not been there at all. And that's probably why people don't go, because just miles away from anything. So if we're going to do that, sort it out properly and do it. But for the Meads, I mean, if it was Swale House, it's actually much easier just to come here one place, and it makes sense to me. So, but we need to get it sorted out. Everything else on this report, I agree with. So happy to accept. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Harrison, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There is a proverb, analogy, whatever. You don't get a dog and bark yourself. So I do agree. If you've got a working group and they're doing all the donkey work, then there's little point to try and go over it again. So there's things here that I think, let it go. I actually agree with Councillor Bowen, because actually some of them ain't working. I've been here actually, yeah, since we set up the area committees in their different forms over the years, and some have gone down, some have gone up over different periods. So I also agree with Councillor Baldock that one size does not fit all, and I think actually there should be able to be a choice to say, well, actually, area committees work really well for, was it Western and Sittingbourne, but actually, not Faversham, Eastern, and I know people will argue with me about Sheppey, but I can remember the days when it was residents and not organisations that came along to these meetings because they felt that they were relevant. So I say, I do agree with both of you. Having said all that, the 2 points I want to raise on the recommendations was number one, where it said about, number one, it was number 5 actually, where it said about Eastern and Sheppey should not move about as this has caused confusion in the past. Where possible, the venue should remain the same for each area committee. Okay, I sort of accept that. But number 13, it says, to improve the sound quality for people attending remotely, mic, blah, 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 be 249 quid. What about them poor buggers in the room? I mean, sometimes I'm going like this, and in the end, I mean, I haven't been to the last few, because basically, I'm sitting there freezing cold, I'm straining my ears trying to hear, and I just think, what's the point? People are too used to sitting in front of one of those little screens and talking like this. So they're not used to talking to people right at the top of the room. So if we're going to be purchasing something so people online can hear, then what about something for people in the room? And having said all that, the best attended area committees were during COVID. Because as far as I'm aware, there are no budgetary decisions at those meetings, and there are no policy decisions at those meetings. So actually, if they were online, we would probably get a hell of a lot more people engaged. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Worcester, please.
Very quick point, Madam Mayor, is that I absolutely agree with Councillor Harrison's point. A number of residents have come to me when Sheppey committees have been going around doing the thing, and it's something that maybe not within our control, but the accessibility of these venues is a major point here. We've had people attend with sight issues, hearing issues, and mobility issues, amongst probably others, and they come to one meeting and they will not come back because actually it shouldn't really be down to a member of the public to attend a meeting and go, why haven't we considered how best this meeting is accessible for me? I absolutely support Councillor Harrison's point about being online meetings, because that usually is about accessibility in people's own homes, and they can actually regulate their own personal space to join in. And it's not about the people that are at area committees, it's the people that are not at area committees. Very similar with consultation issues with Swale. It's lovely to have people attend a consultation or join in, but the main consideration for councillors should be the swaths of people that do not join in. And the other consideration that we've got is that obviously at the moment the Sheppey Area Committee operates from the Criterion Theatre sometimes in Bluetown. And my question is, why are we not using the building, the Gateway Centre in Sheerness High Street? If we're looking at revitalising our high streets, why are we not using the building that we actually pay for on a regular basis and encourage people to engage with that building that would help them on so many more levels, even though I will say publicly that the Criterion is an excellent venue. I understand that. But the question still remains. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Worcester. Members, I hate to do this, but time is creeping on. We might have to suspend. Thank you. Oh, you're too kind to me. Councillor Braun, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say regarding the Criterion, the acoustics in there are awful. I cannot hear when I'm in that room. I'm not the greatest at hearing. Have a lot of wax in my ears, but you know, I cannot hear. I didn't attend the last one. I attended it online because there was no point me being in that room because I would not be able to hear what is being discussed. If I sit online, I could actually hear it a lot better. So I think I'll be doing that in the future if it's held at that venue because it is not possible. And aside from that, I completely echo Councillor Worcester's views on the accessibility of these venues. Bluetown doesn't have a dropped curb. There isn't one. Not a dropped curb in Bluetown. You cannot, well, you can. I've been with some before, with a mobility scooter. There are pretty prominent speed bumps that if you go fast enough, you can just about get yourself up onto the curb. It is not a suitable place to be holding these meetings.
Thank you, Councillor Braun. Councillor Tim Gibson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be very, very quick. My concerns are, we've sat in here tonight and we've seen quite a lot of disruption in the public gallery, and we're talking about going out to remote areas with these meetings. What about member safety? What about officer safety in those circumstances? How on earth are we going to manage that? Just a pause for thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. I've just been made aware of the information concerning Sheppey Gateway. They will not open in the evening, so you wouldn't be able to have an area committee done there. Thank you. Councillor Baldock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Listening to the things that have been said tonight, I'd like to propose it's not an amendment, but propose a proposal that each area committee to be changed to councillors and residents forum, being able to be empowered to decide its own location and frequency. There's no point us sitting here trying to judge whether or not we think the Criterion is suitable or that the Eastern should stay in one point. That's for the Eastern to decide. That's for the Sheppey people to decide. So I propose that, as it would actually give people the freedom to make all these points that they've made tonight in a productive way and see an outcome. Let's not keep tying the hands of groups and committees by one size fits all. Let's just allow people to work together and say, right, shall we meet in Laysdown this week?
Do I have a seconder for the Councillor Jays? Hold on a moment. That was a long. So what are the words? What exactly are the words you want to use, Councillor Baldock, please?
But each area committee, named to be changed when changed, to decide its own location and frequency. So if it wants to drop to 3, it can drop to 3. If it wants to drop to 2, it can drop to 2. If it only wants an annual meeting, it can have an annual meeting. Let's let them have that power.
Okay. We've got a seconder. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question how that would be done, because if this council agrees that then surely that needs to be a change in the constitution to be able to have the area committee to be able to make a decision. Because at the moment, area committees can't make decisions. So even if we say that they can do that, the constitution doesn't allow that decision to be made.
Councillor Wise.
I was just on the point of allowing them to choose often they might like to meet. Oh, maybe we'll have another one next month and book a venue. Officers need to book these venues in advance. Officers need to be sure of those venues. I think trying to plan that given your other point, Councillor Baldock, about knowing that certain policies are coming forward to discuss, then you need the certainty in the calendar around when the area committee is also meeting. There's nothing, I presume, if we're going down this route of stopping area committees having extraordinary meetings if they wish to have one, and you know, no one's taking that away from them. But we can't just have a system where you may decide meeting to meeting that you want another one and therefore you need to go and find a room. One of the biggest issues that officers face is that we might be asking a venue to use them just once on one evening a year, whereas they book their rooms or their halls out well in advance for monthly and weekly events, and so the opportunity is very minimal. And then when people get there, there's accessibility issues. We've had issues with people being able to access suitable toilets. The Wi-Fi can be poor. We've turned up and half the stuff that's supposed to be in the room's not there. So there's been all these sorts of issues that don't really lend itself to that, unfortunately.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's so nice to hear such passion about the area committees. When we conducted the member survey, only 16 of you bothered to fill it in out of 47. And of those 16 that bothered to fill it in, it included the 4 chairs that were on the working group. So come on, really, we're going to argue at 10:30 to undo the work of a working group that met multiple times over multiple weeks to come up with a set of solutions to problems that were identified when you couldn't be bothered to take part in the consultation yourselves back when you had the chance. Come on, people.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Worcester, did you want to?
Only a point of clarification. I'm so sorry, I'm so tired. I agreed. On the point of clarification, have we ever taken that right of chairs to do an extraordinary from the chairs of area committees? They've still got that right, haven't they?
I didn't know it existed in the first place. Where's it saying that? I've got no idea. I've never heard about it until this evening.
Well, I apologise. I assumed it would be the case as it's called a committee.
So his discussion is now being held.
Shall I shush
Dolly?
then? I'll shush right now.
Sorry, Councillor Worcester. We won't be a moment.
Chair, Madam Mayor, if it helps, at 3.1.4 of the Constitution, extraordinary meetings, an extraordinary meeting may be called by the Mayor. Elsewhere in the Constitution, it says the word mayor can be supplemented by chair. So therefore, area committee chairs can call extraordinary meetings, as can 1/3 of members.
Thank you, Councillor Jays. I knew there was a reason I had you here. Councillor Bowen, did you want to give us a bit of wisdom?
Well, I don't know about that, Madam Mayor, but I'll got a couple of words. I'll take the point that's just been made, and again, they'll check it in the terms of the Constitution, but it's just been said to me, they're not committees, they're forums. Slightly different context is what we've agreed. However, that'll be worked out in a minute. The other thing, we seem to be going again around the houses. I agree with Councillor Martin. This has gone through the working group. We've said, a few of us tonight, actually, how much better it was in terms of attendance when these meetings were online. So wouldn't it be better potentially having an amendment once this is dealt with to say, actually, scrub all the in-person meetings and just put them online? And that saves a lot of money. But that would be, again, a constitution change. That's not within this amendment. But we seem to be focusing on where it's going to be when several of us have said, actually, we got better attendance and engagement when we're online. I'll leave it there, Madam Mayor.
No, thank you. So we'll go to a vote on your amendment. Oh, go on then.
I just simply this would, I'm not saying you sit there and think, oh, well, let's have another meeting next week. This is obviously has to be done through the proper process. You start off with 4 meetings, and then if you decide, and they have to be scheduled in as all our meetings do. But if you then want to only have 3, then you remove 1. If you want to only have 2, and it's voted at the committee, then you remove 2. You've still got to have the regular slots. You can't just say, oh, shall we change that one and have it in February? So I'm not saying it's a total free-for-all anarchy. I'm just saying a vote that you take at the committee on the number of meetings can be taken, and then you decide where you're going to have the meetings in person. Or maybe some of the area committees would vote to have all online. That would be the powers. That is the point of this amendment. Give each area committee those sort of powers that works best for the members on that committee. Let's not say you can't do it because nobody else wants to do it, if that's what suits your area. That's why I'm proposing this, because it answers all these questions. It gives the freedom to the area committees to actually put it in practice. No, you don't. I'm not suggesting what you suggested, Ashley. It is some degree of decorum.
I'm going to ask the monitoring officer to comment on this, if I may, councillors.
So, in relation to the constitution as it stands at the moment in relation area committees, compared to, for example, service committees, they are much more limited. It's a very, very limited scope for the area committee. I think in relation to that decision you're talking about there, that would have budgetary implications in relation to that. I don't think the area committees actually have, budget decision-making functions as they stand at the moment. So I'm not, if I'm honest, convinced that this is an amendment that you could make this evening in relation to how they are currently constituted. I think you'd have to come back and address what the committees are, and it's beyond the scope of the work that's been done by the working group, which was within the scope of the committees and providing clarity to what they do, but not to actually change them into, for example, spending committees or anything of that nature. So I don't think it's a practical thing to do at the present time.
Right, so you're saying we can't vote on this amendment?
Well, I'm saying if they vote on it, they've driven a cart and horses through.
Yeah, okay, we'll still go for the vote anyway. All those in favour of the amendment that Councillor Baldock has put up, please show. All those against? Any abstention? Members, any abstentions, please? No, then the amendment. Yeah, the amendment is lost. Councillor Baldock. Councillor Martin reserved his right to speak on this, so he still has not had his right. He spoke to your amendment. So Councillor Martin, please.
To paraphrase, 16 of you filled in the consultation. We spent weeks doing it. We spent weeks going out to the public. We had many meetings. It's gone through multiple processes. I think it's time to go through with the 14. And just to clarify, if you were to move them online, they couldn't make any decisions. So, that would be absolutely pointless then, wouldn't it? Anyway, 14 recommendations there. Go for it. Please do.
I invite
Don't waste my summer.
I invite Councillor Wise to sum up if he wishes.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to also take the opportunity to say that these decisions taken by those of us on the working group they wasn't by like a majority vote. It was consensus of those in the room, which included the area of the chair of the Western Area Committee. So we didn't make any decisions about Western Area over his head. We were in agreement around this. So it's totally fine that a view's been expressed contrary to that, but I just wanted to make sure that people were aware. And probably for Councillor Martin, it does feel like deja vu, because just to give you all reassurance, we discussed literally every single one of the items and points of view that you have expressed this evening, and we presented you with our findings, having already presented them to various other committees. So it's absolutely fine if we want to continue to ignore working groups, in which case I would suggest that we really don't waste our time setting them up in the first place. And I've already made the points that I've made about having some sort of certainty about the rooms that we're doing, providing people with the access that they need, the Wi-Fi that we need, and that when we turn up, the equipment is there that we need. And unfortunately, this had been expressed by people on that working group that this had been an issue in the past, and that is where our recommendations came from. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wise. We'll go to the vote on the 2 recommendations on this report. There is 2. Councillor Baldock.
So we are allowing Western Area Committee to be honouring its vote to not meet at Swell House.
We haven't voted on it yet, but that will be, yeah. So recommendation number 1, which is to consider the vote at Western Area Committee, requesting for recommendation 4, Western Area Committee meetings should take place in community venues in the Western Area, not in Swell House. All those in favour, please show. All those against, please raise your hands. Any abstentions? So
11 is abstentions.
then that recommendation is carried. Thank you, councillors. Recommendation 2, to discuss and agree the 14 recommendations that I'm taking en masse, proposed by the Area Committee's Review Member Working Group and recommended by Policy and Resources Committee. All those in favour, please show.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, could I just say, because we've taken that vote for number 1, should that be that this is to agree the recommendations in light of agreeing recommendation 1?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, thank you very much. As amended. Yeah. All those in favour, please show. All those against, please show. Any abstentions? 1. That is carried. Thank you, councillors. 2 abstentions. Thank you, councillors. We now get the witching hour. We now get to agenda item 13, reduction in number of service committees. I invite the leader to speak and propose the recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The recommendations are that we don't implement the part of the decision taken on the 2nd of April 2025 to reduce the committees by a further reduction of 1 in the municipal year 26-27. And recommendation 2 is to keep the committee structure as the following committees: Policy and Resources, Environmental Services and Climate Change, Housing, Health and Communities, Property and Economy. And I'll sit down. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Can I invite Councillor Bowen to please second the recommendations and ask whether he wishes to speak now or reserve his right?
Second, I'll reserve.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I concur.
Councillor Perkin.
That's fine with me.
Councillor Gould.
Yes, happy to do this.
Open debate up to members. Anyone want to speak on it? No. Councillor Bowen, you reserved your right?
It's seconded.
Thank you. I invite the leader to sum up if he wishes.
It is done, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. All those in favour, please raise your hand clearly. Thank you. All those against? Any abstentions? It is carried. Thank you. We're whizzing now. Agenda item 14, appointment of independent members to the the panel. It's been a long night. I invite the leader to speak and propose the recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council is asked to agree the appointment of Keith Hills, Linda Howard and Dave Crompton to the members' remuneration panel. End.
Thank you. Councillor Bowen, would you like to second the recommendation and reserve?
Seconded and reserve.
Thank you. Councillor Baldock.
No.
Councillor Perkin. Councillor Gould.
Agreed.
Open the debate up to members. Oh, sorry. Does someone have their hand up? You're jesting. Councillor Harrison. Oh, you're voting. That's what I like, eagerness. Councillor Bowen, you reserved your rights.
Tis done.
Thank you. Invite the leader to sum up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to say it's done.
Thank you. Members, you'd like to show, raise your hand clearly, all those in favour? I think it's unanimous. Any against? No. Any abstentions? No. Okay. Do I need to exclude because we didn't use? That's fine. No, that is now a non-item. Right, members. I hereby close the meeting, but before I do, I would just like to say thank you to all of you for tonight, but also thank you for the support you've given each other and myself and the officers and the staff at Swale House over what has been the most distressing time that we've had recently. You really have shown respect and dignity, and it's good. We might not all agree with each other, but the one thing we do is we stand up for democracy and freedom of speech. So thank you very much, councillors. There will not be refreshments tonight because I think we all deserve to go home.
Madam
but
Mayor,
Councillor Baldock, if you want to help yourself to something,
Madam
please
Mayor, if I may, can I also
Councillor Owen.
extend our applause to the way you handled the situation tonight, and I'd like that minuted.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Bowen. And I would also give my thanks to the member of the public that sat through all of that tonight. And my husband, who he didn't really want to watch the football tonight, so it doesn't matter. Thank you very much, councillors, and good evening.